Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Extra, a chat with Ranty. It's a very impromptu show, hence me not being quite set up or ready to actually do anything, but see if I can get Ranty on the line. Hopefully I might have a bit of a natter. Hello?
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
A little delicate this morning.
Delicate? What, like Timmy Osmond delicate, hungover kind of delicate?
That kind of delicate, yeah. I think I had a little too much to drink last night.
How come? Are you celebrating something?
No. I'd been working quite a lot on a job and finally managed to get it done, so just needed to chill out and unwind. Got a couple of days off now before next week, so
Oh, that's
what
good.
about you?
Well, I'd normally be walking to Gymboree right now, but it's absolutely pouring down, so hence me doing a show rather than taking my kid to a gym class. It's a bit of a bummer.
Oh,
Really.
you're live.
Say again?
You are live. You are live.
I did tell you that on the Skype message.
Yeah, you did. It's
Rough
just
start
that
though. I was like, oh, I'm going to go live. I've got nothing else to do. I'm just sat here watching Tim Osmond. So I started it all going live. I was like, hang on a second. I've only just woken up. Nothing's turned on. So the show started and I'm running around turning amplifiers on and starting my desk and doing all the stuff you should do before the show. So there's like, I don't know, a minute and a half of empty air at the beginning of this. There we go.
Timmy was funny though. He was really struggling to string a sentence together.
Yeah, he was pretty drunk. I thought he'd given up. I thought he was an alcoholic at some stage and had tried to give it up or something like that.
I have no idea. You've been in this debate longer than I have, so you know all the backstories of everybody. I don't.
I think he sounded like he was drowning in his sorrows because he's still in denial about it's okay to be suppose It's like, no, that's a logical fallacy. Assuming your outcome is a pretty severe logical fallacy. So if you still want to claim that, fine, you're just in denial. You'll get there one day, Timmy.
I think the funniest bit was when he impromptu got up and decided to go on the
drunk
bike,
cycling
on the bike for about 20 seconds.
That was priceless. Him slipping off the foot pedals. That was brilliant. Why would you jump on an exercise bike if you're drunk?
I think he's got a fetish with ankles because he always seems to show them off when he's on cam.
Oh, is that what it is? He's just showing off his goods.
His cankles.
Fair enough. Each to their own. So you got an award from Simon Dan, did you?
I did, yes. Best globe-proof videos, or apparently. So, yeah. I mean, if they want to call that best globe-proof, that's fine. That's up to them. They just essentially just don't understand what they're actually seeing. Just 1 minute.
Don't understand. I think we've got to the point now where we're actually looking at these effects, and I'm not putting words in your mouth when I say this, but maybe some flat earthers, including yourself, were a bit more tentative to look at these particular effects. You know, when we didn't understand the begging the question fallacy, we were all looking to beat the calculator, right? Because we didn't understand that it's an aside profile and it's an ignored perspective. So you're out looking for observations that don't work in the calculation. And in the last, I said to you on the debate a few days ago, I was like, there's been a big change in you, Ranty, and it seems like you've figured that bit out. In other words, beating the calculator is kind of meaningless.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've known it's flat for how long? I've known it's flat for perhaps 2 years. You've probably known it's flat for longer. Obviously, we know it's flat, but proving it is difficult, you know, and we have to face reality. And reality is that we don't always get the weather conditions that allow us to see perfectly flat year round every single day. It just doesn't happen. Unfortunately, because there's probably 90% of the time it looks, you can't see as far as you would normally see on a flat Earth. So the globers will jump all over those kind of observations and say proof of curve. It's how they were able to deceive people for so long. And as flat earthers, we've generally steered away from looking at the reasons as to what those effects are and what's causing them, and really doing an in-depth study on them. Because essentially the globers look at it and they say proof of curve, and they are dogmatic in that belief that it is proof of curve. And you know, until you actually address that, just sticking your head in the sand and not addressing it and fronting up to it and saying, well, let's analyze what's going on here. Until we actually do that, we're not going to get anywhere. Simply saying that we can bring a boat back forever, zooming in on it, will always bring the boat back. That's never going to happen. There's weather conditions. It's just as simple as that. And so we need to address that, you know, and that's what we've been doing. I think we've done a very good job this year of addressing that, breaking the curve calc. Last year, you broke the Google Earth for elevations. Excellent. They had to concede then that the elevation data is all over the place. You know, it's a slow process of unwinding the lies and deceit. And if they want to call it globe proof, they're entitled to do that, because that is what they've relied on for the past few years, is looking at an inferior mirage and saying that's proof of curve.
Yeah.
Whereas with a fresh set of eyes, we can look at it and say, well, let's really analyze this now. Let's do some real analysis. And that's what we've been doing.
While that's going on, it doesn't surprise me one bit that they just take it at face value and say this is typically asserted as being Earth curve, and, you know, completely ignore what we're actually doing. But that's fine. It's like that is to be expected when you've gone beyond the, oh well, this is showing more feet and inches than it should based on the calculator that ignores perspective. Therefore, this disproves the it's like, no, it doesn't. You're already assuming you're on a curve with a radius when you use that calculator. So what does it prove or disprove? Well, nothing. It's completely fallacious. However, we can start deconstructing how they've taken the optical effects that we see in everyday life and deconstruct them and try and figure out what is actually the occurrence that you're viewing, as opposed to just going Earth curve immediately. That's Earth curve. That's Earth curve. So when you're spotting this stuff and going, right, let's figure out what's happening to this boat as it goes into the distance. Let's have a damn good look at it with angles in mind, which is precisely what we have been doing, taking into account perspective. Like I say, someone like Conspiracy Cats is just going to go, on the surface that looks like a boat going over the curve, even though we look at it with very different eyes to him. He looks at it through the indoctrinated eyes of somebody that's been told he's living on a sphere and the authorities are correct about everything and you have to trust them. So he's going to look at that and instinctively, that's curve, and then punt it as so.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there's a reason why people, you know, like your channel got an award. There's a reason why I got an award. And it's the same as in any kind of war. If you go to battle with somebody, what you try and do is take down the most important people, or the biggest threat, the biggest threat to them. And I'll be honest, I have to say that, you know, I mean, I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but other flat earthers are starting to look into this now. The perspective, the inferior mirage and the compression, everybody is now talking about that. And I have to hold my hand up and say, well, I was the one that banged on about this, and I've taken the flack. I've taken the flack from flat earthers and ballers alike. But essentially, we've got to this point now where we are addressing the very real phenomena of what we see, and we're understanding it. And it's a very good counter to their nonsensical claim of refraction and looming, right? We're now addressing that. The compression in the inferior mirage is an absolute flat earth counter to their refraction looming nonsense, right? It's essentially the opposite, and it's very provable. And they hate that. They hate that I'm taking their little globe proofs, their inferior mirages, and I'm sticking it somewhere they don't like. So they're all attacking me, and they're all making videos and hit pieces, because essentially they're trying to bring down the credibility of somebody that's been doing this for the past year. And that's what it is. And you, Nathan, too. Every day you're fresh every day you've got the freshest stuff out. You've got people joining who are presenting fresh evidence. You've got other people, the Globers can join. You are a threat to them. Your channel has grown. So, of course, you're going to get flack. You're going to get awards because they see us as a threat.
Yeah, I saw, I can't remember which show it was, but I think it was a replay, actually. But Simon Dan was in someone's chat going, Nathan doesn't understand the scientific method. I thought, that's interesting. You know, that's pure projection. I do understand the scientific method. And presumably someone like Simon Dan, who's got Sci, presumably for science, in his title, is yet to use any scientific evidence of anything at all ever. So these guys are projecting their inadequacies or their inabilities onto us. And once you sort of spot that they are just projecting onto you, you think, oh, well, fair enough, this is your problem, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the typical term when you say a sheep. A sheep is basically just a sheep. It follows the herd. And the Salamandans and the conspiracy cats, they are just sheep. They have been told to walk in a line by the sheep master, the dog, or whichever's chasing them and leading them in a direction. And they all go in the same way. They don't deviate from the path. We're different because we can take a step out of that world and be, sort of like analyze what we're looking at, analyze where we live. Does it make sense? Their claim, does their stance make claim? They're just dogmatic in their indoctrination, and it's a symptom of the society that we live in, that these people just exist, that they can't actually think for themselves. If you go back hundreds of years, people thought for themselves. They weren't brainwashed sheep like they are now. And that's all down to the education system and how it all works. And it's interesting that Simon Dan and Conspiracy Cats are both teachers. It's interesting that the guy that joined the debate about a week ago from America, whilst he was actually teaching a class, it's these teachers that are so indoctrinated in the teachings that are trying to teach other people.
Yeah, the same goes for someone like Miles Davis, who I don't think is a teacher, he may be, but I don't think so. They're just parroting the narrative. So while we find it laughable at the moment that someone like Miles Davis is still just going back to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective, hijacking, curve calculator to make his point, it's like, well, that is the narrative. They are going to revert to type every single time because it is indoctrination. That's kind of, admittedly, we don't, on the debate, we're not really covering that in a great deal. We're not covering the whys and wherefores of seeing globes continually on TV. I did that like 3 years ago. And it's not something we highlight, but maybe we should, because that is the reason why someone like Miles will completely discredit everything we say to his audience, while simultaneously taking as read the mainstream narrative, even though it's being, taken apart in the most literal sense of the word by us. Wiggles, I'd call a victory for the final, encounter with him off air for the Nathan Oakley 1980 audience. It's just on the backup channel. But ultimately speaking, it got to a point where he's basically having the same thing said to him over and over and over and over again. And eventually he concedes, not because he's been browbeaten into it, but because he had to accept the reality of his situation, rather than repeating back to us, yes, it's just geometry only, the calculations don't account for perspective, but that's fine, why would I need to be... in other words, all of his questions of us about why it's justifiable to include perspective have been whittled away and, left in the dust because they're not relevant questions. And all you're left with is the same question asked initially. Why doesn't your calculator include the very real aspects of perspective? Why does it put you in a side view so it can remove those aspects? Why doesn't the mountain that you show in your depiction change size when you move it to the right-hand side of the page when that represents being further into the distance? There aren't any decent answers to those questions. This is what we're highlighting. But the mainstream narrative will still just say, here's the calculator. That's how you work out how much earth curve there is. It's never going to parrot what we say. It's never going to say, oh, by the way, we completely ignore perspective from this. It's geometry only. But people like Rumpus and people like Miles and people like Wiggles will come along and say that like it's a defence. Oh, it doesn't include perspective, it's geometry only. That's perfectly acceptable for analysing photography that includes perspective. Why would that be a problem? Like, well, that's an absolute outrage. It doesn't match reality. They'll even say things like it's not performing viewing functionality, the calculator, that is. Like, that's a defence. So you're comparing it to photographs even though it's not performing viewing functionality. And that's a defence, is it? No, that's an outrageous submission of the truth.
I see someone's woken up.
Oh shit, she's joking, right? She's been away for about 4 hours.
What was it? Been swimming today?
No, it's gymboree, so it's like a gym class. But I won't be going. I'm already too late to go. It's just too wet. Every time I've gone in the past, I was determined to go regardless, hail, rain, whatever. It didn't matter. I was out there. But then you probably remember I was constantly having colds, and everyone was like, "Oh, why are you always so ill?" It's like, well, because I'm walking to all these different classes in any weather, and you know, it just makes you ill. So
so it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't the class for you. You weren't going to do gymboree.
No, I'm not going to gym. Learning about carrots and planting pumpkins. No, that's not me. No, it's my kids' class. So she's got a class every day, basically. But yeah, I don't have a car, so I have to walk to them all. But you know, they're all reasonably local, maybe 20-minute, 30-minute walk at the most to a Spanish. But yeah, it's just a bummer when it rains.
So have you got any plans for next year?
Well, I've got to make an announcement. Maybe I could just do that now. It's just a chit chat. So I know you know already, but I hadn't actually announced on any of the live debates that my wife's actually pregnant with our second kid. I just meant to mention it. I told everybody I know, or pretty much everybody I know, and then just never mentioned it to the audience. But it's never really been appropriate during a debate. It's like, why would I mention that? I'm telling the audience to join to debate the shape of the Earth. Oh, and by the way, my wife's pregnant again. It's like not really appropriate. I didn't feel, but in this chit chat, that's far more appropriate. But yeah, there you go. There's my plans for for 2019. They'll be looking after 2 kids rather than 1.
So around about what, next April? Would you say?
About that, yeah, something like that. Obviously, you don't.
Something around April.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, exciting times. Another sprog. Get to have my wife here for a 6-month period on maternity leave, which is lovely.
Excellent. What are your plans with the debates at that time? Then are you going to go on a hiatus for a short time, or are you going to still do them daily?
I intend to still do them daily. I mean, yeah. At least the first 6 months, my wife's going to be here to help. So you know, she'll be on maternity leave, which means I can continue to do them. I hadn't intended to stop. I will stop over Christmas, which I didn't last year. I actually pre-recorded, as you well know. You know, I think it was even Miles Davis on the Christmas special, was it not?
It was.
So, yeah,
but you had to retract at the end.
Yeah.
Had to make a retraction eventually.
Like them all. But last year I actually went to the effort of pre-recording that about this time. So I did a pre-record. But, you know, I was working my socks off to try and build the momentum of the show. Hence me doing, you know, a pre-record so that on Christmas Day there was still not live, I shouldn't say live, recorded live, as live, debate still went out on Christmas Day. And this year, sod ya. I'm enjoying Christmas. I've done it for a year solid without a rest whatsoever. So, you know, I'm sure a couple of days off won't harm.
True. And I have to admit, I'm really pleased that you've decided to call the baby Ranty.
It's a little girl for a start. So, no, it won't be getting called Ranty.
Ranty Oakley.
No,
we have a name, but we won't tell anybody. Are you going to tell anybody what the name is, or is that going to be?
Well, I don't know yet. I mean, we've got a few shortlisted names, like anybody, until it actually pops out. I don't really know. You know, we've got a couple on the shortlist though, so we're all right.
You'll see whether it looks like a Ranty or a Rantony or something else. You'll decide at the time.
If it pops out looking like you, Ranty, I'll have some questions to ask my wife.
Oh, funny stuff.
Can you shout out some of the chat? Can you see?
Yeah, sure. I can see the chat. So, multi-tom-toms in. We got Utin, 2 staple flat earthers. Andy Brooks, hello. Sean Hutton. Gleam,
Quantum Reach Around. Check out that for a name. Quantum Reach Around. Good to have you, Quantum Reach Around. Thanks for being here. DJ Black, nice to see you. Sean Hutton, thanks for being here. Andy Brooks, chatting away with Quantum Reach Around.
FE Diplomat, hello. Ian Astles.
This is Hethead 1949. Thank you very much for being here. Good to have you. Gleam, nice to see you. Robert Wiggles, good to see you. Nice to have you here. Oliver and Liam. John Watson says, congratulations. Thank you very much, John.
Keep smashing the dislike. I love it. It's been going up a steady one every 15 seconds or so. So somebody's logging into a different account and thumbing it down. It's so funny. But what they don't realize is that these actually help the video get promoted because there's interaction with the video. So yeah, keep thumbing it down. Lovely.
Yeah, it really makes no odds. It's viewer interaction. So clearly people love to hate the show. If they're disliking it, that's the way that YouTube view it. You know, if you just watch a show and go nah and move on to the next one, you've had no interaction whatsoever. That's, you know, that's bad for YouTube. If you come on, watch, sign into 10 accounts, dislike it every time, that's quite a lot of viewer interaction. That's good news for YouTube. Happy days.
So
hey,
next
Jose.
year, do we have any plans for next year? I'm working on a video for all the stuff I've done this year. I'm also hoping to do a video that will maybe involve a few other flat earthers, but we'll see, maybe for Christmas. But what do you plan for the show next year, Nath?
Nothing any different. I mean, I keep saying this when anyone says, oh, what are your plans, what are you going to do? It's like, well, I picked this format for a very specific reason, because it had longevity. You know, so long as we have the mainstream rhetoric being globe, as much as Anthony says things like, oh, well, all the debate questions have been dealt with, we've won. It's like, well, yeah, I know the Earth's obviously and observably flat. That doesn't change the fact that the mainstream rhetoric is still globe. There is always going to be that guy or girl out there that goes, oh my god, these guys think the Earth's flat. Well, that's just stupid. And they'll click the link and join and have their ass handed to them. And that'll never change, unless the rhetoric of the mainstream narrative changes. Which, do you think it looks like they're suddenly going to have Neil deGrasse Tyson go, actually, NASA have been lying to you non-stop since about 1950. Yeah, we are on a flat plane. No, they're not going to do that. So there's always going to be next man, next woman who thinks they're on a globe. They think they live on a model. They're happy to use the reification fallacy that they've been indoctrinated with since birth. Well, we're here for them.
What do you think about when new people join? Is it going to be, we've tried the kid glove, and I noticed recently you haven't literally given them any rope at all. I mean, a new person will join, and within 10 minutes, you're ramming it home how stupid they are. Is there a thought to perhaps going back to the more kid glove type of way, or are you just going to keep hitting them with a hammer every time they come in?
No, I've got no intention. I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, the obviousness of the truth leaves the nature of the lie laughable. So the globe lie now, I was chatting about this a couple of nights ago with my mother, and she's not into this subject. Obviously she knows what it does, but it's not like it's an ongoing thing like it is for me. But she's aware that I do this show, and I was chatting with her about it, and I found myself laughing about it on more than one occasion while I was describing some of the nonsense that is put out there for the globe and how it's formulated. And I literally found myself chuckling about it, and I thought, this is a bit of a joke. At this stage, for me, it just seems laughable. So when somebody comes in, if they're like Wiggles at the end of the after show the other day, they're happy to concede that it's just their belief, then I'm most of the time I'm really cool with them about that. That's fine. If it's your belief, then you're entitled to that. No, nobody's going to ever give anybody any grief for that. But if it's the case that they come and dogmatically assert that I'm on a sphere, or you, Ranty, you're on a sphere, then that makes my blood boil. It's like, I call them Jehovah's Witnesses. You know what I mean? Like, so you're coming knocking on our door demanding that we accept your faith. No. Why would we do that? But there's always going to be that. Like I say, that's why I've picked Flat Earth Debate as something to do. What I was looking for was something to give me a way of streaming daily. It's like, well, if I just be that guy who does video logs, no disrespect to the guys in Flat Earth that do that, there are plenty of them who go out doing vlogs. I did it initially, that's how I started out making videos. But I just didn't think it doesn't have enough teeth to keep people interested. And the debate, on the other hand, that's what Flat Earth is. That is the essence of Flat Earth, the debate. And, I often hear Math Powerland saying about, people aren't aware that there is a debate going on. And things of that nature, and you think, well, yeah, that's why it's a long-term prospect to do the flat Earth debate until the rhetoric changes. You know, that means I'll still have a show in hopefully a long period of time. That was my intention, at least. You having fun there? With your My Little Ponies? Yeah, so it's just, I think it's got longevity. That's why I picked it.
And I think a lot of people won't understand why you actually promote your second channel as much as you do. It's not the fact that obviously you do your re-uploads, but there was a very important reason for that at the start of the year, if you remember rightly.
Absolutely, I needed more money.
Well, no.
No, I'm just feeding the trolls,
You got a strike, though, didn't you? You got a strike on this channel.
I did, yeah.
Because this was what they used to do. So you would get people that would come in and they would deliberately try and take the debates down. And until we figured out a way that could counteract that, they had free range to basically come in and cause chaos. And it got you a strike, so you weren't able to live stream on this channel. So you had to use your backup channel, which set you back 3 months, because you had 3 months where you weren't able to use this channel for the purposes of what you made it for. And so in some ways they had won for that short period of time. But it's interesting to know that you do have a backup channel, and in case, worst case scenario, anything does happen to this channel, they can always, if they are subscribed to your other channel, at least see the debates on there. So maybe you should promote that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have been. I mean, the backup channel's actually evolved into a bit more than that. Yes, when I first started using that, that was purely just so I could have the ability to stream should I get a copyright strike, as I did. And, you know, it was very useful because within minutes, and I do mean within minutes, I was streaming again. So I had a copyright strike. The show ended because someone came on and played porno. And within, I think it was probably less than 10 minutes, I transferred all the stream key across on OBS, and I was up and running literally within 10 minutes on the other show. It's like, well, I'm not going to let the people who are trying to do that think that in any way that they can actually stop the show from running. So it was back up and, you know, with the same, you know, people on the panel pretty much within 10 minutes. But now it's slightly different. So what I was doing was running the show, and if the conversation was juicy live, I'd keep going indefinitely. And some of the shows were like 2 hours long. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted them to be an hour, digestible chunks of show. Not too long, about an hour. But there was juicy conversation that would often continue. And sometimes it would continue offline because they weren't live. In other words, people would lose a little bit of their inhibitions, maybe concede where they might not have done in front of a live audience. And that's often been the case. So we've had some you know, pretty big concessions from some of the globe heads when the show has ended. And then that goes on to the backup channel. So yes, it gets watched by a very limited audience. But if anything, the audience on my backup channel, not by the numbers, but proportionately, is growing quicker than the main channel. No, it's not. If you just look at the raw numbers, there's more people subscribing to this channel than there is to that channel. But when you consider that that's a tiny little channel that's literally just there as a second channel to broadcast some of the off-air bits and, you know, whatever else I stick up on there or stream if this gets a copyright strike, it's growing, and that's good because it means that people are getting to see some of those extra bits that the live audience just aren't privy to, and the majority of people are only going to see the live shows and not going to really realise that once the banner goes past the Flat Earth Debate logos end rolling, I stop the live show, but I'm still recording, and you know the debate normally rages on for at least 10 or 15 minutes after the live show ends. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it could literally go on for as long as you decide to stay around, because as soon as you leave the chat, obviously that's when your stream ends. But essentially, even when you leave, it still stays on. You know, I mean, so I've been in the debates probably 5-6 hours after, literally 5 or 6 hours after, and people are still coming in, popping in, debating, because the link is still available. You know, so when the link's published and the stream ends, I mean, other people can still click the link and still join it. If you had the link open, let's suppose 10 minutes after the show finished and you didn't want to speak to anybody on a live debate, but you wanted to come in and ask a question essentially off air, then you could still join by clicking the link. There's people still in that actual room that are still talking about Flat Earth. So the option for you to either join on air on the the record, the re-upload with the additional 10-15 minutes afterwards, or off air, it's still there. The link's still available, and we're prepared to talk. We're happy to talk, aren't we?
Yeah, we just get degenerates at the moment. So, you know, you get people attacking your family or attacking your woman or attacking whatever because they don't have any actual globe arguments. You know, Anthony was the butt of it yesterday. Anthony is his missus and his missus. And you just think, what's the point of this? Is it just a cheap dig at, you know, Anthony for no apparent reason whatsoever? It's like, I don't even know what he was trying to say. P Mars, this is. You know,
yeah, I've seen it.
You just think, what's the point of this? We're asking you to prove axial rotation, Earth radius, curvature, pressure without a container, and all he's got to talk about is Anthony's missus. It's like, why? Is that the best you can do? It's pretty sad.
It's the same with Pete Shea and Antonio when they're bringing up Patricia. You know, I mean, there's no room for it in the debates, really. It's Flat Earth should transcend that. It's not about who we are, what we do, what our family is, you know, where we come from, you know, because I often get attacked for being a painter and decorator. Does that mean that I can't have a thought of my own or put some pieces of the puzzle together? You know, does it unqualify me to talk about things in this debate by virtue of me being a painter and decorator? You know? And it's really that narrow-mindedness that you have to have letters after your name, or you have to have the perfect, good-looking wife, or whatever way you want to look at it, right? That they will decide to attack or use that as against you, and it's not what the Flat Earth is about. It's about people like you and me, everyday people, questioning authority and trying to figure out where we live. And P Mars doing videos about Anthony's missus is not part of that. And I'll be, you know, if he comes in, I'm going to kick him. He doesn't deserve to talk on the debates when he's making videos like that.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, on the one hand, I want to show that that's the kind of tactics that they use, but on the other hand, you just think, no, actually, we do want to discuss this subject. So it's a hard one, you know. On the one hand, I think all are welcome. On the other hand, there's now at least a couple of people that I'm severely tempted to add to the list of about 2 people already that are just permabanned from the show. You know, as much as all are welcome, there is a very, very, very small percentage of people at the moment. It's literally a couple of people only that I just won't let on the show anymore. You know, and there might be maybe a couple more being added to that list. You know, on the other hand, I see people in the chat right now that are going, "Oh, I really appreciate you." You know, what was the example the guy used? Scrolling up, just give me a second. Alan B. So someone was talking about yesterday's show, and it's like, oh, well, I appreciate that you gave Alan B a lot of rope yesterday, or whatever the guy phrased it as. It's like, well, okay, but I don't want that. You know, I don't want to discuss flat earth children with Alan B. It has absolutely nothing to do with the actual debate about the shape of the earth.
And that raged on long after the debate's finished. It was very heated. If you guys want to go and check out what was actually said, I think you were still recording, weren't you, Nath? So basically, you wanted it hammer and tongs with Alan B off air, and it needed addressing. It's things like that do need addressing. Can't be just left to fester under the truth movement of flat Earth. It has no part of the flat Earth movement. It's not the debate. The debate is sphere, flat. That's the debate. Now bring your scientific proofs, and if you don't have scientific proofs, at least put the debate out there and let's talk about it, and let's see if somebody else can add to whatever whatever you've brought to the table. You know, at the moment there is no scientific proof for the globe. It's as simple as that.
Right, exactly. And the objective of the Globers isn't necessarily to discredit our position in regards to the lack of evidence for the globe. It's to discredit us personally. You know, that's all they're looking for. While simultaneously they lie through their scummy back teeth and, you know, they're coaching each other in the background of hangouts and things of this sort of nature. You think, or as we started the show out talking about Simon Dan, let's use him as an example. So he's giving you an award for Globe Proof. In other words, rather than actually address what you've detailed, he's just going to do the mainstream standard rhetoric thing and go, there's a boat going over the curve. It's like, well, we're detailing what's actually happening with it. So rather than actually acknowledge that, you're going to completely ignore it. Same with me. It's like, Nathan doesn't understand science. That's his comments. You're like, okay, aren't you supposed to be Simon Dan? I mean, I'm just using my name here, Nathan Oakley. Somebody has taught me in the very recent past on air about this subject, so people can go back and see how I've acquired this knowledge. Like, literally, they can watch me being told, you know, in the most literal sense. Yet Simon Dan doesn't offer any science whatsoever. So you've got to think, well, rather than actually address maybe some of the housekeeping questions, what about showing us some curvature? What about showing us some axial rotation evidence? What about showing us some gas pressure without a container evidence? What about showing us some distance to the sun evidence? No. He doesn't address any of that. The actual really shit-hot stuff that we do right at the beginning of every show. No, don't address that. Address me for my YouTube popularity, because that's what we're gauging here, right? No, that's what YouTube gauge. In that respect, I see myself on an even playing field with Simon Dan. It's like, I wish Simon Dan every success on YouTube. He is my fellow YouTuber. If he's successful, that means I can be successful. So good. I hope he is successful on YouTube, if it's real. However, in terms of the actual debate that we're discussing, you'd rather only talk about that. Oh, right. I see. That's really not the point of my show. I'm not here solely putting out these housekeeping questions so you can address me on my YouTubing ability. Yeah, I'd love to be more popular. Everybody on YouTube would. We're all into ourselves. Like everybody. Shock horror. So yeah, obviously, I've got an ego. I'd like my channel to be more popular. So would everybody with a channel. You wouldn't be on YouTube if you didn't. So that goes without saying. Not really a great defence against the housekeeping questions that we raise every single show, though.
No, and we've been putting these questions out for the past, regular 5 months, I would say, and we're still to get anybody to come in and give us what we ask for. Scientific proof of any of the housekeeping questions, because it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, in my opinion, it's pseudoscience. And if it's pseudoscience, then we have to go back to the drawing boards and we have to start afresh. Globebusters released a video a few days ago now about somebody with letters after his name who actually did use the scientific method to prove that there was no curvature over a distance of approximately 13 miles down in Brighton over water. So water isn't curving. If you don't have curvy water and it doesn't conform to the gravitational pull of the Earth, and it's not curving in a 13-mile stretch somewhere on Earth, then you can apply that logic to the entirety of the Earth, because water won't resist the curvy ball of gravity. It won't resist that. It has to bend in their model. You can't have flat water. So if we have the scientific proof, this is what we're asking for, scientific proof, and yet we get scientific proof of flatness. Literally scientific proof using the scientific method. This is the kind of stuff we are asking for. They're not bringing it to the table, but flat earthers are. Just the way it is. They have nothing to bring to the debates. They're being left behind. They haven't evolved their argument. And like you say, the only thing that they have left now is rhetoric and to try and belittle the channels that are actually doing the work. So that's why you won an award. That's why I won an award, and I'm sure there was other people that won awards too. I haven't actually watched the stream, so I don't even know what they were saying or what videos they were using. It just shows their ignorance of the whole topic. And in regards to Simon Dan and conspiracy cats, they are children in this debate, in the literal sense that people like Slice Barkane and Wolfie and Sean Hufford and those type of people, they've been around the debates. They've got their suits, they've got their armor, they've worn it, and they've earned their stripes. They would know far more about the debates than Simon, Dan, or conspiracy cats at this time know at all. They're just children in this debate. And that's why I don't take them very seriously.
Well, absolutely. I mean, of all of them, the best troll is Sly Sparkane. You know, I often give him props for this. And it's because he knows our argument really well. He knows how to misrepresent it. So he becomes a challenge. You know, how has he misrepresented it? Let's pick apart what he's doing and how he's doing it. Yeah, his recent effort with your proof was absolutely awful. But if you ignore that particular example, he's typically pretty good at misrepresenting the position. In that respect, he just did a knee-jerk reaction. It contradicted his fellow ballers, which is hysterical. But, you know, that aside, typically, Sly Sparkane does know our argument really well, and therefore is far more challenging. And the same applies to us. Again, I'm not blowing our trumpet by saying this. We know the globe argument really well. We know the model really well. Probably better than Conspiracy Cats and Simon Dan, which is why we're good at debating it. Well, those guys aren't good at debating it. We've had Conspiracy Cats on. You know, he was a pretty poor debater in that regard. You know, it doesn't have any good arguments against the main position we put to him, which is how do you have gas pressure without a container? And he had nothing. He's got nothing to answer that with. You can straw man us. Oh, gas pressure gradients. Oh, right, gas pressure gradients. So that has to be pressing on something too, does it? All right, so we can apply the same question. Right, where are you going with that then? Silence. Nowhere. Nothing. You know, we debunk space. You know, we're doing pretty big things in terms of how we rip apart the heliocentric deception. Space is nonsense. You can debunk the medium. The very nature of the thing that all this crap they say is taking pictures of Earth from space somewhere you'll never get to go. We can debunk that with a simple question. A question posed to people like Conspiracy Cats. And what are they going to talk about? Oh, well, they're going to talk about how well we're doing on YouTube, because that obviously addresses all of that, doesn't it?
Well, he was challenged months ago when he first came on the scene, and, you know, originally he was one of these people that I wanted to engage with, and I set him a challenge. I said to him, I have a series of observations of Barrow and Furness, the one for observation in particular. Here's a link to the my Google Drive with all the images on it. Feel free to download it and come back to me with a video that, you know, tells me one way or another what you actually believe is going on in this. And he was set that challenge, and up to now, he still hasn't addressed that. And like you were saying before, Sly knows how to misrepresent using sleight of hand. And yet I have seen videos from Conspiracy Cats where he just blatantly misrepresents the work that I've done. So when the boat, for instance, he completely ignores the massive inferior mirage that's going on underneath it and just says, yeah, Ranty proves that there's a boat going over the curve. And because the audience that he has, and I'm saying this in the terms that probably those people aren't actually very clued up about the flat Earth debates. I mean, people that watch our debate here, they see an inferior mirage, and then they implicitly know what an inferior mirage is. But it's very difficult to see that if you've never been showed it and talked through it. So the people that watch Simon Dan's channel and Conspiracy Cats are very new to the debates. And if they see a boat going into the distance and fading, and somebody's just telling them that it's going over the curve, they just watch it and believe it. They don't look into it and see what's going on. So by deliberately omitting a lot of the data, you know, it's becomes less sleight of hand and more deliberate misrepresentation.
See, I don't agree. I think it's far more carefree than that. They're just going with the standard narratives. So as I said earlier, we've reached the point where we're not shying away from what they use as globe proof, because we're actually studying the effects of perspective, how the angles all work, how the atmospheric conditions interact with it, things of that nature. They're just going to look at it and in their indoctrinated way just go, Earth curve. They're not going to pay the slightest bit of attention to what you've said about it. They're just going to look at the images. People like the flashy pictures, and they're just going to go, Earth curve. Because that's what these brainwash zombies do. So they're not misrepresenting your position. They're just going with the indoctrination first and foremost. Ah, brilliant. A globe proof. Look, boat going over the... Yes, that's nice. Globe proof boat going over the horizon. That's what he sees on your images. He probably didn't even listen to what you said, Ranty.
Yeah. Well, it's like rumpus. So when I put this out and I said I am going to next year for a solid month. So in fact, I might even continue it past a month. I might do it for 3 months. Who knows? But I'll go down to the exact same spot on Anchor's home seawall. There's a place that I can stand that's got the railings right next to the steps. It has a marker there so that obviously I can film and show you my exact location every single day. And in a direct line of sight from my position, I have a metal post that's actually in the water, and it's a marker. It's a very obvious yellow and black post, and behind that, some 16 miles past that, we have the buildings of Barrow, and I'm determined to go down for as long as it takes, 1 month, maybe 3 months, who knows? I might even do it for the whole year, and continually film at least once a day, if I can see, obviously, if the weather conditions allow it, the buildings of Barrow. And the aim is to see whether or not there's any looming going on. And by looming, I mean if the mountain behind or the buildings that I'm actually looking at are being loomed, then they will be in a different relative position to the post. So they will be rising up or rising down. So that will be proof of looming. Now, I've asked for proof all year from the Globers. Can you provide me proof of looming? I want to see a scientific way of you proving to me that looming happens on buildings, not just a beam of light, but buildings, literally buildings, or mountain ranges, whichever. And I want to see them all lifted up in proportion, exactly how I've been filming Barrow and Furness this year, or anywhere, other people doing stuff, and they've claimed it's looming. So, because there's been no proof of this looming provided by the Globe, I think the other way to do it is to go and try and find it out for myself. And this is a perfect example of I can go down to this spot, I can film the post. So the post is only a couple of miles away, and 16 miles further, so 18 miles away, we have Devonshire Dock Hall, which I should be able to take an image of each and find out exactly if there's any looming going on by relative positions of each. So the post versus the Devonshire Dock Hall. Obviously, if I go along for 3 months and I don't see any looming effects for 3 months, that kind of disproves the argument for looming, except if you're Rumpus. Because Rumpus actually said, when I actually proposed doing this, the first time I talked about doing it a few days ago on your debates, he was in the chat saying, well, no, the post will be subject to refraction too. Right? That's what he actually said. Now, this is the argument that I will encounter from the Globe. I could go down for 3 months solid, show that the post and Devonshire Dock Hall stay exactly in line with one another at all times, all weather conditions, different temperatures, it doesn't matter, they haven't changed. And their argument will be that the post has been loomed at the same rate or refracted at the same rate, even though it's only a couple of miles away. It will have been refracted at the same rate as the buildings behind, therefore it is not a proof of looming or not. This is the people we are dealing with.
I mean, looming's a load of old nonsense, and this was really brought home when you started saying about, well, when do you ever see your mate loomed up from behind the hill, or a house loomed up from behind a hill? So what we're talking about is literally that. So I know at the top of, near me, there's I think it's called Campion Hill, and I would normally be walking on it right about now from swimming, but on the top of that hill there's a view, and depending on how clear it is, obviously the further I can see. But what it would actually mean is that at some point going to that hill, the view would change, and stuff that was previously behind another hill is loomed up. The atmospherics leave me with a view of a house that previously was hidden by a hill. Now, you may think, well, that sounds ludicrous. Well, that's precisely what they're claiming. The hill being the earth curve that's obscuring your view of something in the distance. And if it's less obscured than the maths that excludes perspective says so, then it's being loomed, right? That's what they claim. It's nutters. It's just nutter territory.
What's interesting as well is the The video that I released a while ago now, 6 weeks ago perhaps, about looming, and I said, "Are these?" I think I can't even remember how I titled the video, but essentially it showed a massive inferior mirage of Barrow in Furnace, and I've been desperate for anybody to come and say that that's a proof of looming, because the point about the post is very relevant in this case, which that in both videos it was the same tide height. Obviously, one had a massive inferior mirage on one day, and a different day it was just clear as a bell, you could see it. And what looked like looming on the left-hand side of the buildings of Barrow, so where you've got what used to be known as floaty land, so we had floaty land going off there, was nothing but the inferior mirage. And that was proved by when I panned across and got to the post in the foreground. So obviously the post is just a couple of miles away. Behind it, in the top part of Devonshire Dock Hall in relation to the top part of the post was in exactly the same place on both days. So there was no evidence of any kind of looming or anything like that. In fact, the only distortion that was going on was at that very narrow angle, which on that particular day caused the effect of the inferior mirage, which coincidentally, because it happened on a sliver of land, made it look as if the land itself had been loomed. So the bottom part of it had been cut off, and it looked like floaty land. In the past, when we've addressed things like this, they've said that's looming, and that's but being able to place it in a position has always been tricky. So quite often you'd be zooming out to, like Anthony did, zooming out to Isle of Man, sees the floaty land, and their claim is that the entire island of the Isle of Man has been loomed up. By virtue of the work that can be done at Barrow and Furnace, you can disprove that and prove that it's just an optical effect of the inferior mirage, and that the land hasn't moved at all. The land has stayed in the same position at all times. It's just an effect that makes it look as if the land is floating. It's just an optical effect. And the inferior mirage does cut off. It does happen in the atmosphere, and it can, I know it can happen on water and a flat surface and all this. I know it happens on roads and stuff like this. There's no denying that. But there's also no denying that it actually happens in the atmosphere as well. And this is what we're actually finding, because up till now, their claim was always that it only happens on surfaces. The work that's happening at Barrow disproves that conclusively, that this effect does happen in the atmosphere as well as happen on water, flat surfaces, anything. So floaty land isn't floaty land. It is an inferior mirage. And the inferior mirage, the stuff that you do see, is still there. It's still in the relative place that it always has been. It's just that on some days you can see it and some days you can't.
Yeah, this stuff's only taking place at the most limited of the angle, and that's at the bottom of stuff. So like you say, if the top is still referencing its exact same position that it always was, and you're just missing a bit of the bottom, depending on the conditions. And it is a combination of weather and angle. So if you have a reduced angle because there's a bit more of a swell on the ocean at high tide, then it's going to reduce your angle of view. The higher the thing you're looking over, the smaller your angle. So I think it is a combination of the two, because when you see that strip along the bottom edge and the inferior mirage below, I think that is the diffraction limit. The more I see it, the more I look at it, the more I think about it, I think we are looking at the diffraction limit, which is varying because you're looking over a surface that's changing height, the water. So I think we are seeing the effects of the diffraction limit at that most severe angle when we see that inferior mirage, whereas I know you still think it's an atmospheric effect that's causing that. But I just think you wouldn't get the consistency from left to right if it was an atmospheric effect.
Well, I noticed you had to concede on that video of floaty land, because I was at an elevation of like 40 feet looking over at a landmass that was only some 13 miles away. And that's when you actually had to say, well, yeah, you kind of win that argument, because it couldn't have been anything other than the atmosphere that did that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not disputing that there is also atmospheric conditions that can cause similar effects, but they all get bundled into one category for globe heads. They call it obstruction at the horizon, aka curvature.
Yeah, and what we also notice is the compression. So I have a feeling it will never be able to be proven though. This is the one thing that I will say. So when you see the compression, there's dozens of proofs of this year that I've brought out, and also other people are doing it as well. Jose did a video yesterday, and he also brought some evidence out a few days ago. We've got Red Pill Philosophy that's done stuff. Compression does happen. It does happen in that very narrow angle. It also happens to be in the exact space where the inferior mirage happens as well. So it's my hypothesis that the inferior mirage, when we see that, we do have the compression happening in the distance, but we can't see it because quite often the weather conditions that allow us to see the compression is far less frequent than the weather conditions that allow to see the inferior mirage. So you'll see an inferior mirage far more often than you will see the compression. And I think that's all, like, again, it's down to the humidity, the temperature, all that kind of stuff on the particular day. But it's like when the inferior mirage isn't there and you don't see that, but you see the compression, then it's it's definitely logical to assume that behind the inferior mirage, the compression is still happening. It's just that we don't see it. So when we look at things in the distance, and they always say, well, we're seeing 50% of the top of the building, and we're only and down to the hard horizon there's only 20%. So that must mean that there's 30% of the building missing. And what you're seeing is a small inferior mirage. Well, no. I think the inferior mirage happens to hide the compression that's going on. And yet we do see evidences when the inferior mirage isn't there that compression does happen as well. So I think two of them go hand in hand. I definitely think when you see an inferior mirage, you've got the compression that's going on. Is it always the case? Probably not.
Well, maybe I was about to agree with you 100%, and now when you say maybe not, then that's where we disagree. So I agree, they do go hand in hand. The two are intrinsically linked. They're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, I agree with you on that score, but I think we're looking at it from different ends of the spectrum. You're looking at it that the atmospherics are causing the condition. I look at it that the angle's causing the effect, but the two are intertwined. In other words, if you've got a swell coming into that estuary, it's going to reduce the angle. So I think the two are intrinsically linked with it. But it just makes me smile, because what a wonderful time to be alive when we can discuss these things in such a manner that we don't really know, but we're trying to figure it out. And it makes me smile because there's a group of people out there that have to look at that effect and go, I've been told that's Earth curve, so I will dogmatically state that without any investigation whatsoever. I don't need to. Someone's done it for me. I can just parrot it. It's like, which is more exciting? Going to Wiki and having it say, yeah, that's Earth curve, and you just repeating it? Or looking at it and going, what's actually causing this?
Yeah, and if you think where our argument was a year ago to where it is now, I mean, how much this debate has progressed. I mean, there's so many good channels doing some really great stuff out there, I have to admit. For instance, we've got Martin Leakdy, for instance. Look at the work he's doing, right, about the history of stuff. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Everyone should go and subscribe and watch his videos. It's tremendous. But not just him, but I mean, across the board, people are evolving their argument in their own little way. You know, everyone has their own niche. For you, Nathan, you have the broadest of all the niches because you're here every day. It's fresh. Anything that comes up, you're on it. But the argument has moved past where we were a year ago to where we are now. And like we're having this debate now, we're debating between us whether it's the diffraction limit or the atmosphere that's causing this. Think in a year's time, with another year's research, what we could achieve, we might have this answer. In a year's time, we should have the answer. Is it the diffraction limit of the camera or the diffraction limit of the eye? Or is it the atmosphere that's causing it? And hopefully another year of research will answer that. But think, a year ago, we didn't have this. Now we do. And now the Globers have nothing to counter it with. And the compression and the inferior mirage is their nemesis. It literally is their nemesis to the curve calculator.
Well, I don't know. I think you and Anthony are looking at it from within the fallacy. So like you say, I tend to chop these people's heads off when they come in with these assertions based on the fallacy that is there in the first instance. So in the case of
they have it. Obviously, they have the fallacy of the R. We understand. I understand that, Nathan. But in their mind, they still cling on to the R. So in their mind, their R is their God. And the fact is that what we see as being an optical effect, when it's actually spelt out to them in the clearest ways, which we have been doing recently, is literally their nemesis to their God, their R. So when we ask for their proof of R, they don't have it. But we have proof of compression. We have proof of the inferior mirage. We have proof that floaty land isn't looming. We can prove all this. We are bit by bit taking away chunks out of their argument. And this is why we're under attack. And I know what you're saying about letting them with their logical fallacies, but it's their logical fallacy, Nathan. And we are attacking that. And what we are talking about now with the camera or the atmosphere, it literally still is a nemesis to their argument. It's a nemesis to their R. It's a nemesis to their curve calculator. Regardless of whether we like talking about it or not, it genuinely is, because it's part of the argument. It's their argument. And this is our position.
Without picking the fallacy from in the fallacy, the people who just ignore the fact that it's a begging the question fallacy will still cling on to it as though it is some sort of proof. And if you can show them, I mean, it's useful for me. It's been great fun saying, well, you're ignoring perspective. Well, I wouldn't know that if it wasn't for you guys actually picking apart the calculator and how it deceives us. You know, kudos to you, kudos to Adam Meakin, kudos to Anthony, kudos to Arwin. You know, kudos to all the people who did it. I didn't. You know, I eventually realised it, having been told it and had it pointed out and had it picked apart by you guys. So, you know, I'm undoubtedly correct when I say there's many members of the audience that are exactly the same. They hadn't really realised this. All of them will have heard arguments about perspective. I've watched Rory, I've watched my perspective, and it never twigged that that's precisely what they've done. They've hijacked perspective and just called it curvature. And they've done it by removing us from the observation. Well, we wouldn't know all that if it wasn't, if I had my way. I'd just be like, well, no, it's a begging the question fallacy. Why would we do it? Same applies to John. He said it to me many times. He's the same as me. It drives him absolutely nuts. It's like, why bother arguing within the fallacy when you can just rip it apart from the outset? But it is incredibly useful to have done so. You know, these arguments are getting stronger as a result. And you have to deal with me trying to stop you the whole time. So it's probably frustrating from your point of view and Anthony's point of view. And even Adam's, you know, Adam's like, look, I am going to have to beg the question when I do this, Nathan. You're okay with that, right? You know, he's almost apologetic for working within their fallacy.
Well, it is, because, I mean, essentially, you know, all the work I do, I mean, I don't do anything about the stars. I've not looked into the stars. I've not looked into the sun, the moon, nothing like that. I haven't looked into any of the celestial bodies. So for me, you know, my entire goal for what I intend to do on Flat Earth is to disprove the globe model by working out how they have hijacked perspective and replaced it with curvature. And that's been my entire goal, and it's still my goal for the following year. I mean, who knows when I'm going to start looking at the stars. I might never get down to doing that. But so I have to beg the question. I have to allow that question to be begged, because then I can hopefully counter their argument. And this is what, you know, this is where you and I are different, because you won't allow the begging of the question. And to be fair, I've got to that point as well. You know, I won't, you know, when we're in the debates, for instance, you know, there's no point in allowing them the option of begging the question until they prove R. That's fair enough. But then when we're trying to educate them about what's going on with stuff, you know, why we see stuff the way we see it, why we see things cut off from the bottom, why we see, we can never always, you know, we can never, ever watch a boat 150 miles away. It's never going to happen at sea level. We're never going to be able to bring it back. So that's just a fallacy, that we can just zoom in and we'll always bring a boat back. It will never, ever happen. It's an argument born out of ignorance, I would have thought, of the actual effects of the atmosphere. But until we address the reasons as to why we will never be able to bring that boat back and counter it with a very logical response. You know, not just we can zoom in on it and it will always be there. That's just a cop-out. That's a cop-out. It really is a cop-out. We have to address the fact that boats do occasionally appear to look like they go over a curve. But why is that happening? You know, we also have to take into condition to affect these things like tidal bores and riptides, because it depends where you're filming. Now, I know Wolfie did a video showing a boat in front of another boat, and it looked as if this boat behind had tank containers on, was going behind a curve. It did, until it popped out for a moment, and you saw, obviously, it was compressed to all hell at the very bottom of the boat. But besides that, in the area that he filmed that, it's well known for having something called tidal bores. Now, tidal bores artificially increase the height of the water. As the tide pushes in, it pushes the height of the water up in front of the viewer. So if you're standing on the shore, you'll get an artificial hump as the water's being pushed towards the channel. So where he actually filmed that from, or where the guy filmed it from, whoever's channel video that he used it, there was obviously some kind of tidal bore happening there. Now, it happens at Barrow in Furness, funnily enough, as well. It's well known for having tidal bores, which will artificially raise the height of the land in a certain area. And I had to address that I'd moved nearer to Barrow in Furness and thought I'd found a nice spot to do some filming from, until I realised that when I went there, it seemed like, what's going on here? Well, how come half the building's missing? And that was addressed when I actually did some research and found out that tidal bores are well known to happen in that estuary, which artificially push it. In fact, I might actually have to go down to this spot and repeatedly show the tidal bore effect, because there's a video up there on my channel. It says I found a new location to do this filming from, and that was me filming whilst there was a tidal bore actually happening. So it was artificially raising the height of the water. So until we understand things like the topography of the land that we're filming from, and all that kind of data is plugged in, you know, we will get people that misrepresent what they see. And, you know, when Wolfie does a video saying that this is proof of curvature, no, it's proof that there was a tidal bore at that time. Because we have scientific proof now, courtesy of Globebusters and the channel, the guy that did that with his PhD, scientific proof of no curvature over 13 miles.
Not scientific proof. I've got to stop you. You've said it 3 times now. I'll let the first 2 slide. So
go on.
It's not scientific proof. Like, what you're trying to establish.
He used the scientific method.
It's not. You know, it's just not. So Adam passed on a message, or showed me his correspondence with that doctor, and the doctor was like saying, "Look, I've put all the information that anybody could possibly ever want in my 1.5 hour long video. There's no need for me to come and talk to you about this. There's all the information. Do with it what you will." But in his response to Adam, he was saying, you know, the experiment, this, etc., etc., etc. And my reply to Adam was, it's not an experiment. You know, he's not establishing an independent and a dependent variable. He doesn't have an observed phenomena. He doesn't have anything that stipulates that it would be called science. Nothing at all. So you can't call it science. You can call it an observation. And to his credit, you know, he calls it an experiment and then goes on to correctly identify what it actually is. And he's like, the observation is there on my video. You can see all of the details of the observation. In other words, he's strapped on the word experiment unnecessarily, as many people do. And what you're trying to establish in science is a cause of an effect. An effect being a natural phenomena. So science is exclusively interested with the physical and natural world. And you're trying to, by using that method, establish what the cause of an observed phenomena is. So that's it's really limited. It's, you know, it's not a broad, you know, peer-reviewed, observation-based methodology that can be called experimentation willy-nilly. It just can't be, because it isn't. You know, if you are doing science, you are observing a naturally occurring phenomena and then moving forward with multiple potentially different independent variables to establish which one is the sole independent cause of that effect. That's science. Once you've done it through systematic experimentation and established the cause of your effect, you've got your cause. that's the end. You know, that's when you've got a scientifically valid cause and effect reasoning to present to whoever, so they can use that information to do other things. It's putting a handbag on her head. They are funny at this age.
Well, he didn't see anything different to what probably every other person with a half-decent camera could see if they just took the time to go down to the beach on a nice day. Didn't have to be particularly sunny, just a nice day when you've got a very little atmosphere properties, you know, atmospheric effects going on, and they will see the same thing. And then they've got to ask themselves, am I actually seeing this, or am I actually seeing a mirage? You know, because essentially that's what the globe would have you say.
Would you do that? Would you ever look at, like my example over on the hill near me? I look across at that hill. I've never once looked across at that view and gone, I wonder if any of this stuff is a hologram. You wouldn't logically do that.
It is hilarious, isn't it? It is hilarious when you think about it.
But yeah, it is hysterical. Like I say, that's when I was talking to my mother, I was finding myself chuckling about some of these things. Because when you phrase it like that, when have you ever looked at anything ever and gone, I need to really question whether or not this is a hologram? And you don't. You know, we look across at the Isle of Man and go, Isle of Man. We look across at a boat and go, boat. But these people look across and go, hang on a second, my begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator says that that island isn't there, it can't be seen. Geometrically, it's blocked by Earth's curvature. What Earth?
Well, yeah, I mean,
how
has any war ever been won? Any naval battle? Any artillery's dropped anywhere? You know, if you're using, you know, like in the old world wars when they had those artilleries that could shoot for miles and miles. How did they ever hit anything if everything they were looking at was a mirage or a hologram? How would they know if they'd actually hit anything or they were aiming in the right spot? You know, when the sailors were sailing and they had an armada, a fleet, and they were looking for another fleet to attack, how did they know? They see the fleet and then they say to themselves, is that a mirage? Is that a hologram? Or did they just sail towards it and attack them? You know, how did any war ever get won?
Did you see Taboo Conspiracy's video when he had a periscope shot of all these different ships? And he goes like, oh, that one's at such a distance that 50% of the ship is actually obscured by Earth curve. So that means the whole thing must be a hologram. Oh, that one's definitely too far away. That's definitely a slightly looming non-standard refraction. No, we can't shoot at that. Oh, that one's within 7 miles. Oh, we could shoot at that one. That one's definitely real. They all look exactly the same. They're all.
And here's the other thing. Here's another thing, Nathan. I just wanted to get this out here, right? So we have snipers that obviously snipe, and they have people that tell them the wind direction, etc., etc. And they're supposed to factor in for the Coriolis effect, yeah? Well, why aren't they factoring in the refraction on that particular day? Why aren't they taking into effect that and saying, well, actually, that's refracted up by 24 inches. we need to aim higher. You know, I mean, why is refraction not taken into this little formula? Because they've got a formula for the Coriolis. Why don't they have the formula for refraction too?
It's because it's all bollocks.
Yeah, exactly. It is bollocks.
Are we pooped out? Should we round out this live show? Or have we got anything else we want to chat about? It's been on for a good hour and a bit. Hour and 15 minutes almost.
Yeah, no, just congratulations, Nathan. Going to be a dad again next April.
Indeed. Congratulations, me. I'm fertile.
Daddy.
Hooray.
You're fertile. Like you say, you better hope it doesn't come out looking like me.
Wait, it's the second time you've mentioned that. Right, I'm asking my wife. Have you ever met Ranty? Better not have.
Yeah, it got a little girl as well, isn't it? I believe.
It is, yeah. We found out the sex the other, about 3 or 4 days ago.
You have 2 little girls. 2 little girls. Awesome.
Yeah, should be fun. It's good. Don't have to move house. Happy days.
Why would you? Would you have had to move house if you'd had twins?
Not if it was twins, just if it was a boy. Because I mean, maybe for a year or two, it's okay for them to share a room, but beyond that, I think you've got to give them separate rooms if they're different sexes. So if it was a boy, we'd have had to have moved house, which would have been stressful, like moving houses. So I'd prefer not to have done that. So a girl was preferable in that regard. I'm quite pleased.
Good
Cheaper
stuff.
too.
Well,
We've already got all the stuff, so very little that we actually need to buy. Just just the outgoings of the general house goes up a little bit for having an extra mouth to feed. But other than that, there's not a great deal of expense associated with having a second girl. So yeah.
No, Nathan, you're getting it wrong, mate. You do need new clothes. You've thrown all the old clothes away. You've got no clothes for the baby.
Yeah,
Remember, you're not e-begging properly.
And I was just about to mention that. So I said this to Ranty last night. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't actually mentioned publicly that my wife's pregnant. And he's like, oh yeah, you've got to mention. People might hit the super chat. I'm like, that's not the reason why I would mention it. I'm not going to mention it as a useful tool to e-beg. But thank you anyway, Ranty.
Come on, Nathan. You've got no shame. You know.
I've got no shame when it comes to me and my own efforts and my hard work, but just being fertile and being able to produce a second kid isn't really worthy of me saying, support me in what I do. Support me in my shagging of my wife and getting her pregnant. Please give me money. That won't go down very well. Whereas if I say, look, I do genuinely put out 2 shows a day and work very hard doing so. So, support me if you want to. That I'm more than happy to say. And when people do support me, I'm eternally grateful to them. Mark Doxy sent me some money yesterday on PayPal. And it's just like, oh, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If people didn't do that, I wouldn't be running the show because I do have, like everybody, outgoings, like any normal person. So yes, I require money. I'm normal. So yeah, I'm not ashamed to e-beg and ask people to give me support for what I do. They don't have to. And most don't. So, if people want to criticise me for e-begging, it's in one ear and out the other. I really couldn't give a crap. But I don't think it's tasteful to e-beg because my wife's pregnant, Ranty, as much as you saw it as a useful opportunity.
Well, I was expecting you to do it. That's the thing. See, I don't.
Oh, right. That says a lot about what you think of me.
You've e-begged everything else, and I just...
Nah, I only e-beg for the work I'm actually doing. So literally, while I'm actually sat in front of the mic and I'm like, please support the channel, literally I'm doing my do right there and then, right? So I don't have any qualms about saying, yeah, I do need support for doing what I do. If I didn't have it, I couldn't do it. So, check it out. Someone's hit the super chat. That better not be for my pregnant wife. It's for my flat earth work, I'm telling you, Ranty. Thank you very much, Howard.
Nice one, Howard. There you go. There's the first nappies.
Yeah, that'll cover a few nappies. No. No, I'm not, like I say, I'm not at all ashamed to be begging when it comes to actually, what I do on YouTube. I am a YouTuber, and that is how YouTubers survive when they're not super, super popular and have 100,000 plus channel subscribers, which I don't. So I am totally dependent on people's support. So I am eternally grateful. Every single person who sends me something on PayPal, I reply to them with a personalised message. It's not just some cookie cutter message. Yeah, they get repetitive because some people donate multiple times. And I say the same thing to them each time. Look, I am genuinely grateful for your support. Without it, I wouldn't be doing this show. So, I am thankful. But, I'm not going to ask people for cash for getting my wife pregnant. Definitely not.
Someone's going to make an account, aren't they? Someone's definitely going to make an account. They're going to call it Nappies for Nathan.
That's I don't think so. I mean, having kids is the most natural thing in the world, isn't it? Everybody does it. It's perfectly normal. There's nothing out of the ordinary about having a couple of kids.
It seems to me that a lot of the Globers don't have, well, a lot of the troll ones that come in, they can't have kids the way they speak. The way they behave. They can't be adults.
They wouldn't be able to attract someone of the opposite sex, you mean?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I mean.
Well, some of the after shows, you'd probably say the same about me.
Is that a plug for your show?
No, that I'm not a pleasant person to be around, especially I'm shouting at some baller.
Oh, you mean after yesterday's with Alan B? Yeah, I mean, I think everyone should watch that heated argument that you had with Alan B. It's on your backup channel, isn't it? So
Anthony pointed out after the fact that he wasn't actually directing any of that at me. I was this, like, I can't remember how Anthony phrased it, something like you were just a sideline. because he was actually attacking Jose. Obviously, it's something near and dear to me, so I obviously piped up, but he wasn't attacking me, he was attacking Jose. And when I thought about it, I was like, well, what possible reason has he got? Why does he want to attack Jose? And then it dawned on me, well, he's out with the P900 doing flat Earth observations. That's why. It's not all to do with actual, you know, the actual topic in hand. Everything to do with the fact that that particular person, Jose, needs attacking right now. So let's attack him. Let's find something to attack him on. So that's what they've done. So like, oh, well, if you're getting flack, Jose, you're obviously over the target, mate. Good for you.
That's it. You know, I mean, his video where he shows the tracks, the train tracks, is bloody awesome.
It is.
You know, you're looking at a straight track and you see it curving just like Soundley's Ponchain Bridge. It's just the same. It's just the atmospheric conditions warping what you see. And they don't like that. They don't like things like that. And he is the latest flat earther to start doing this kind of stuff. So, of course, he's going to get the flack. You know, if you think that this isn't a targeted industry, you're far, far wrong. Anybody that starts out a fresh channel with a P900 or a P1000 or any kind of observations or does anything like, they instantly get the trolls after them because they're being tested. That's what's happening. They're putting the feelers out. They're seeing whether he's got the wherewithal to stand up to their nonsense, essentially. You know, and what they'll do is they'll attack him, and some people will handle it and other people won't. And that's what they're doing. And the more over the mark you are, the more you get attacked.
Absolutely. He's like you.
The more awards you win.
He's doing good stuff. So big shout, he's in the chat right now. Shout out to you, Jose JG Gonzalez. Click on his icon, subscribe to his channel. But he's doing good stuff. That's why he's getting flack. You know, check out his channel because you'll enjoy what you see. You know, it's nice, simple, short videos. Yeah, it's taken him hours and hours to get to his location, but he's had the wherewithal to pull out his camera and start filming. And he's catching some really cool stuff. He's got the inclination to do it just like you. I love that. Yeah. I think that's absolutely awesome. But yeah, you get a lot of crap for it.
Here's another thing. Like you just said, he puts very short videos out, yeah? So maybe 3 or 4 minutes long. However, to make that 3 or 4 minute video, it probably takes him half an hour to get to his location, half an hour to film it, half an hour to return back to his location, financial cost to do that. Then he has to go ahead and edit the video, put it all together. Maybe takes him a couple of hours to put the video together. So all in, you're talking half a day's work to put that 3 or 4 minute video out. Now, people see a 3 or 4 minute video, yeah, no big deal. But other people appreciate the work that goes into it, the dedication it takes to actually go and do the observation, the financial cost of doing it, and then the time that it takes as well. Half a day for somebody to put a video out that essentially the channel won't probably get monetized, just like mine. So you're not making you're not making any financial gain out of it, but you're doing it for the research, for the other people to enjoy. And people that watch his channel, they need to hit the subscribe button because it takes people, you know, people doing this, it's a big burden on what they do. That 3 or 4 minute video, like I said, it's a burden. It takes half a day for him to put that video together. It takes me half a day to put a video out. You might not think so. It just does. That's how it works. And you know, everyone should subscribe. If people are doing their own research and stuff like that, people have to put a lot of time and effort in to actually do that. So any flat earth videos that you see and you think that the guy's actually been out there and done something, hit the subscribe button, because we actually like seeing a subscribe going up, because it means that we feel like we're actually achieving something. It doesn't have to be any financial gain, but just hitting the subscribe button or the like button on your videos gives you a sense of purpose, a sense to go back and do it again and again and again.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, it is vanity, and if people are ashamed to admit that, then get the hell off YouTube. You know, it's called YouTube for a reason. And ultimately speaking, people are here and they compare themselves on how much subscribers they've got and how many views they've had. So obviously people want their views to increase. People obviously want their subscriber base to increase. I'm no different. But I think in this particular arena, we don't necessarily get masses of promotion from YouTube. You know, we're not going out in the same way as other people might if you were just doing a random subject. So from that perspective, the way around that, and I'm banging this drum a lot at the moment, is to subscribe to the people that you like and share their content. You know, I can't remember what I was watching yesterday, somebody's live stream, and someone in the chat was like, I don't know how to share. And even Anthony said it. It's like, well, how do you share? It's like, you hit the share button. That's what you do. You hit the share button, and then you stick it on one of your social media sites. There's like all of them listed under the share button. You pick whichever one you are, you know, acquainted with reasonably well. And that's it. It doesn't even matter if you've got a huge number of people following you on whatever you've got, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever you're using. Ultimately, there's a reasonable chance that somebody will pick up on that video if you've shared it, because people buy from people, and when you watch a video, essentially you've bought into whatever that video title is. But you might not just click on it because you've seen it in a list. You might click on it if somebody says, I'm watching this, I have watched this. So that's how you get around the limited publicity that you might get out of YouTube. You share people's videos. So all I do, every time I'm in someone's live stream, I'm like, yeah, I've shared this on Facebook. And I nicked that from Patricia. That's what Patricia did. So, you know, you'd see Patricia's comment and it would say, liked and shared on Facebook and Twitter. Good video. And you're like, yeah, that's what people need. You know, admittedly, that also has its negatives when people are like, if she'd have shared my video, I'd be 10,000 subscribers deep now. It's like, no, not necessarily. It makes a small difference. You know, even someone like Patricia, who's got probably 6,000 Facebook followers, you know, when she shares it, she might gather half a dozen views for that person. But that's excellent. That's half a dozen views that wouldn't have ordinarily been there. And if you share it and one mate happens to watch it, that's one view that wouldn't have ordinarily be there, one potential more subscriber that wouldn't have been there had you not have shared it. So that's the way around it. You share people's videos if they're in the same arena as you and you like their content, rather than just, you know, giving it a thumbs up and going, oh, you know, typing something or arguing with the troll in the comments for 3 hours. It's like, just share it and move on to the next video.
Yeah, and I just want to point out as well that that flat Earth channels, as well as probably a lot of other conspiracy channels too, are being suppressed. You know, I mean, the mainstream are actively suppressing the videos in the search feeds and promoting more mainstream-friendly channels such as the Simon Dans and the Conspiracy Cats. If you ever wonder why their channel base is growing quite a lot, that's the reason. And you know, when you see other channels chugging along, like Nathan's chugging along, he's putting on 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 subscribers every day. It's a very slow process. Same with me. I think my channel's growing about 2 or 3 subscribers every day. It's not growing hundreds or thousands like other channels are being actively promoted. So we are, when we say this, genuinely in a war. It's an information war. And you have 2 sides of the argument. We know we have the answers and we're on the right side of the argument. But we are fighting not just other channels and the trolls that come into the chats as well, but we're also fighting the mainstream. And how do we counter that? We counter that by being actively engaged in the people that do the content. Just bear with me. All right, just went down to it. Right. So when we actually, so you actively engage with the content creators. And by doing that, that means hitting the like button and subscribing to them. That's it. You know, all you have to do, like, subscribe. And that is a way of countering what we're up against. There's no other way we can do it. Sharing the show, sharing the videos, that's a good way of promoting. But we are absolutely in an information war. And if you're just going to be passive and watch the video, not interact, not share it, not subscribe, then you're not actually doing us any favors. You know, you aren't helping us to progress and reach a bigger audience. And that's how, you know, that's how they want it. They want to keep us suppressed. So you can help by not keeping us suppressed. You can help. You can subscribe. You can like I say, you can share the shows, share the videos. See a good video out there? Hit the like button and subscribe. You know, don't just sit on your hands.
Most people are, though, aren't they? Most people are generally quite passive about it. Most of them won't comment. You know, obviously, maybe 10% at the most will actually comment in the chat. So we've got over 100 people watching now. I mean, I'd be surprised if there's more than 10 or 12 active chat participants. But that's just how it is. I think there's a huge number of people that watch their content from YouTube on a smart TV. So in other words, they're consuming it like television, off their wall, in their lounge, with a cup of tea. In England.
Exactly. So, and, you know, I mean, it spills over into the real world as well. You know, I mean, I told you a story of something that happened this week to me personally, and let's be honest, shit gets real. It does get real, and when you're actually put in situations that are a danger to yourself, not just talking about trolls online, but in the real world, then you actually know that you're either hitting a spot or you're triggering people to the point that they will actually go to try and cause you physical harm. And it literally is getting to that stage. It's getting to that stage where people are so triggered by their bald religion that they will actively try and seek out people to cause harm to them, you know? And a lot of the times this doesn't go, you know, when you see the comments on videos, like a lot of comments on my videos, obviously it's the triggered trolls, etc. And they'll say some horrible things, and you know, you can pat that off. Most people can't pat it off, but people like myself can. You get used to it. However, there's a change when it actually happens in the real world, you know, because this is when it starts invading who you are, where, you know, the work you're doing, it's affecting you personally. You know, it was started with Mark Taylor with his phone calls, the things being posted to me in the post, you know, threats, all this kind of stuff. You know, shit gets real. It does get real. And people don't understand that when I say we're actually in a war, we are in an information war, but we're genuinely in, it feels like we're actually under attack. And the only way we can protect ourselves is with the community. You know, we need community support. We need people to subscribe, like, you know, put some nice comments on our videos, attack the trolls back. You know, don't let them just have free reign to say what they want on a particular debate. In the debate now, I can guarantee we probably have people that are saying stuff about Nathan or me or attacking other flat earthers. And there's probably a lot of people watching and nobody's responding to them, right? Now, that's fine if you want to be like that. But that isn't actually helping the situation. You know, we've got 108 people watching. How many? We don't know how many are flat earthers or how many are globe earthers. We don't know because we only ever see maybe 30 people speaking in the chat. So, time to stand up and be counted. You know, we're doing our part, but we could do with your part helping us as well.
So, talking of shit getting real, Ranty, are you gonna detail that?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
hold on.
Got real.
Before we do. So, everyone get yourself comfortable. Make sure you're sitting down and take in what Ranty's about to say. I just want to give it a little bit of a build-up because it deserves it. So, Ranty recently had a bit of an encounter, and he's hopefully going to detail that right now for you, the audience.
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm a painter and decorator by trade. That's how I earn my money. You know, I mean, I'm not a YouTuber like yourself who earns money through the business that way. I have to work for a living. So that involves going around to people's houses and obviously pricing up jobs, etc., etc. Well, I got a phone call, an address to go to, went along, turned up outside. First thing I noticed was, because I have a bit of an OCD about car registration numbers as I'm driving, I'll always note cars, new car registration numbers, funny car registration numbers, all that kind of stuff. And I noticed this car parked across the road, and the car registration number was titled Globe 1. That was the name of it, and I thought, wow, Globe 1, that's interesting. Got out of the car, went to the house. The house was for sale. Knocked on the door, nobody was there. Knocked again, nobody was there. Looked through the window, could see that the decorating had been recently done. So I'm thinking, well, why the hell would they want to have me out to give them a price for the decorating? You know, I mean, the house is for sale. It looks like it's been painted. And then I just got this feeling, turned around and started walking back to the car. Heard some calling coming from the car across the road. Noticed there was 4 people in it. Calling me all kinds of different names. One of them, particular name, actually resonated with me, was called Runty Fat Arse. That's what they actually called me, Runty Fat Arse. So I knew straight away it was a setup. I knew it was a trap. I knew what they. I didn't know what their intentions were at that time, but it was obviously a little bit scary. I have to admit, I was scared. Genuinely, 4 people in a car with the registration Globe One calling me out, and obviously they knew who I was because of the things that they were saying. So of course, I quickly got into the car, drove off. They were following me. Every street I went down, they turned around, and I don't have a mobile phone. I mean, I refuse out of I don't know, I just don't like the idea of putting a phone next to you with it that has a mobile attached to it. So I don't have an actual mobile phone. So I'm thinking to myself, these guys are following me here. What they're doing? They're right up my arse. Came up to a set of traffic lights. The lights were on red. There was no other cars around. 2 of the back doors opened on their car. They got out of the car. Luckily, the lights changed again. Set off. I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? I couldn't go home. I didn't want them to follow me to my home address. So I had very limited choice of what I could do. Now, fortunately, I had some tools in the car because my boot was full of decorating dust sheets. So on the back seat, I had quite a lot of tools and stuff. My car's a bit of a mess. And I'd actually been working on a job where I'd had to be sorting out a staircase for this lady. There was some squeaking stairs, and I had a crowbar that was on the back seat. So essentially, it was a case of flight or fight. So I pulled up. They pulled up behind me. Before they got a chance to actually do anything, I grabbed the crowbar off the back seat, jumped out of the car, ran at the car, smashed the windscreen with it, and they fucked off, basically. Screeched off, reversed down the street, and did one. And that was my encounter, and that happened on this Monday. So essentially set up for a trap with 4 knobheads filming me, bearing in mind, 2 of them were filming me. So I have no idea what their intentions were. I've left it this long to talk about it because essentially I didn't know whether they were going to phone the police. I didn't know whether they were going to record it and put a video out or something like that. Obviously, nothing's been put out yet. But if, and I assume that they probably watch this debates, this is obviously, it's somebody that lives local, false registration numbers, Ford Fiesta, and the shit gets real. The shit gets real.
Hello?
Hey, Gary. Hello. You are live, just so you're aware.
Okay. Hi, Nathan.
Hello. So we've got Gary John with us, organiser of the UK conference.
Oh, hiya.
Hello, Ranty.
Hiya. Yeah, so that's my encounter for this. It's the first time I've actually encountered anything like that. But it goes to show you the extent that these people will go to, that they will actually go to setting me up to come around and price a job up, knowing that's so they've not only doxed me, they found out my telephone number, contacted me, set me up to go around to a house, 4 of them with a false registration number on the car, harassing me. I didn't know what they were going to do. I genuinely didn't know what they were going to do. And what would you have done in the same situation, Nathan?
I don't know. I thought about that long and hard after you told me yesterday, and I was like, what would I have done? I honestly don't know. I'd have probably sped away, tried to get away from them, as opposed to pulling over and actually confronting them.
20 minutes I was driving, Nathan. 20 minutes I was driving. They followed me everywhere. They were up my arse at every case. I even got to a roundabout, and I pulled out deliberately in front of somebody so that they wouldn't be able to follow me. And they followed that one and overtook it on a dual carriageway, not a dual carriageway, a separate road, a mountainous way. They overtook that car so that it could come up my arse again. Literally dangerous driving all over the place.
This is why you don't want to drive a Corsa. You need to get yourself a V8.
Well, I don't know, but what I'm saying is that when I say shit gets real, I mean this is the extent that these people will go to.
Man. Mad story. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard it yesterday.
No.
So how are you, Gary? I know you've been trying to get in touch with me. I got a voice message, but I couldn't hear it. It was too quiet.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, As I mentioned to you the other day, that obviously Dean and I are working hard on trying to put together an Amsterdam convention. We can't do any launch yet because we're not quite ready, but we're working hard and also assisting the likes of Robin Campbell and Roxanne and Globe Lite Tour reference something happening in the UK, and it could be about 2 weeks apart, both happening in September. So yeah, some good things coming up, I think.
Oh, so you think it might be Amsterdam conference potentially, then English one? Wow, cool.
Are they round? It's going to be because of time of the year and cost, travel and the cost of the campsite, because we're trying to go for a campsite that's also got chalets and people can tent there. So basically, it just makes it cost effective, because the ultimately thing, we're very aware of people's pocket to try and make it practical, but because of the timings, we wouldn't be anywhere near ready to do anything like April like we did this year. So it just happens to be that Robin is really keen to do something in the Midlands again in September, the end of the Globe Lite Tour, and we also want to do Amsterdam, but we obviously wouldn't want to do it the same weekend because that'd be silly. But it looks like September is going to be a very busy month.
Yeah, it sounds it. Just for those who aren't aware, can you tell us a bit about the conference that's just gone, 2018 UK conference? Obviously, I was there and Anthony was there, but if you can tell the audience a little bit about what went on and how successful it was and some of the people who spoke, things like that.
Yeah, sure. Basically, we put on a convention for the end of April. It was about 11 months in the planning, in a central location in Birmingham. And we had the likes of Allegedly Dave, Darren Nesbitt, Sean Connors, Martin Kenny, Iru Landucci come over from Argentina. We obviously on the Friday night we had Tony to do a talk about the bees to the Isle of Man, which was really good. You obviously were involved, which was great. We had an open mic session. We had a physicist debate on the Sunday, and yeah, it was. And Martin Leakey, he did a fantastic presentation as well, and he was funny. I'm hoping I've got everyone. Oh yeah, let me think. Oh yeah, and Dave Marsh as well, and
Dave
I did
Murphy.
a little bit. And,
Dave Murphy.
Sorry, say again.
Dave Murphy, allegedly Dave.
Yeah, he was there, and he did a really great job. And but I think for me, if I'm being like selfish, on the highlights, the open mic on the Friday night was really spectacular. I think that's really good for people to have a voice, because they don't normally get a chance to have a voice, or not outside of being online, I guess. And the also the physicist debate on the Sunday was I thought was very, very good, and that's something we want to explore again, because we just feel that that's got a lot of kudos, a lot of mileage, really, to have a debate where we can actually get down to the nitty gritty of things, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, actually. I mean, I can do it online now, or I can do it in private, so it's up to you.
Now do it now.
Okay, we were talking to Adam Meakin last night, and we were chewing the fat about brainstorming and going through some things, and Adam quite rightly reminded us that a fantastic person in a debate is you. So we would like to formally, obviously, if we get it all set up that Amsterdam's happening and also we get physicists, we would love you to be part of the panel.
Hell yeah, definitely.
We just think that, and it's funny actually, because Adam mentioned it. Actually, you got a bloody good point. So it was like a slam dunk, really. So we would love to have you there and to take part.
So just so I'm straight on the up and up, am I allowed to call them fucktards and globeheads?
Maybe what you could do, the way to word it is, say, I would like to say, it's like I sometimes say to people, I'm not going to call you stupid because I'm not allowed, but of course I've just called them stupid. So, but
right.
If you, I mean, what we've got to try and do is, because obviously a lot of people are going to see this, because what I'm hoping is that with what we did in the UK and in April just gone, and what we would like to do in Amsterdam, I believe this is a stepping stone. If we can get what we want, and that's going to get some PhD, stroke lecturers, stroke even professors from like the Netherlands, I would like it to be almost like a jump from where we are to where we want to be, and then the next jump would be the likes of the idiots like Brian Cox and the big boys, and really do something on a major level. But you have to do stepping stones. So I know it may be pie in the sky, and some people may be listening to this thinking, "What the bloody are you on about?" But it's just a vision that, you know, if you don't have vision, you don't achieve. So it's just a nice thing to do that will open up a can of worms.
You really see Brian Cox as stupid?
No, he's not stupid, but he's very condescending about us, and he's, you know, we're like on the ITV this morning program. That's obviously had a lot of hits now, and that's really, really good on how that's really taken off. He is just very condescending and very dismissive, and we're like, okay, then come and debate us. So no, he isn't stupid. I mean, he's a very clever guy, but unfortunately, the question is he misdirected, or is he part of the system? And that would be something it'd be nice to find out.
Oh, he's definitely misdirected. I mean, in the most literal sense of the word. I've got a video on my channel about Brian Cox. In fact, the only video I've got about Brian Cox is about this very thing. So there's a fairly well-known video where he's travelling out to the observatory where they measure the distance from the reflectors left by the Apollo missions.
Yep, I saw it. And this is where is this the one where the producer's saying, I gave you a script, you needed to read the script? Is that one?
You've got it, exactly. So Brian Cox basically doesn't understand the significance and importance of promoting this narrative that they're firing light at these reflectors and getting a couple of photons back, and what significance that is in relation to proving that we went to the moon in the eyes of Johnny Globehead. So that's what he has to lay out in words of one syllable almost to him. Look, it proves that we went to the moon, because if we didn't have the reflectors there... Now, of course, most flat earthers will be aware that they were doing that long before they had reflectors there, so it's a nonsense point to use. But if you're just going to put that out into the narrative, you've got to be acutely aware that indirectly you're proving the moon landings took place if you allege that you're getting information back from something that's been left there. But he just didn't understand the significance. His attitude was, well, we don't need to prove we've been to the moon. Obviously we've been to the moon. Because that is your average attitude of average Johnny Globehead. Why would you need to prove it? Well, obviously we've got photographs, right? We've got footage from NASA, so why would we need to prove it? Well, because it's not real, because it's clearly on a set to anybody with any slightest bit of discernment. But he hasn't got that discernment. He's a doctor and he's an astrophysicist, right? So that's his religion. So he's going to believe it. He's got to. That's his religion.
Yeah, I see your point. And also, if I got this right, I think the actual alleged laser was taking place in 1961. So 8 years before they allegedly landed on the moon. So yeah, so a lot of people are hiding behind the fact that, oh yes, we clearly went to the moon because we're getting it bounced back. But it's only as good. It's like the computer, isn't it? You put garbage in, you get garbage back out. And if you've got a load of NASA employees who've all got their modules, all their terminals, and they've been fed something from a control room somewhere else, they're going to take on board, oh look, Buzz Aldrin's heartbeat has gone up a little bit. That doesn't mean his heartbeat has gone up. It just they're being told it's gone up. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think you've got a good point.
So tell us about your daytime TV experience then. What's Philip Schofield like?
A bit of a knob, really, I suppose. It was actually friendly to me at the beginning. I saw him in the corridor and I went, "Oh, hi, I recognise you," because obviously he's an easy character to recognise. And I said, "Oh, I'll be seeing you shortly." He went, "Flat Earth?" I went, "Yep." And I said, "That's correct." And he said, and I said to him, "Are you looking for it?" He goes, "Very much so." But all he had is a script, and he literally had, "Tell me about Flat Earth then." But if you listen to the interview, which obviously a lot of people have, it's very funny that he asked me what's my experiences of why the Earth is flat. So I told him about Balaton. I told him about some of the research and some of the things that I've looked into and listened to. Really, genuine, what I believe is genuine people. So he said, so the whole of science is actually like debunked to him because of this experiment you did in Balaton. And I think, well, that's not quite what he asked. He asked me what were my experiences. So I answered him. He then manipulated it. And it's not until afterwards I look back that you realise how it's just a charade, really, of it, just rubbish. But I could actually dissect the whole. It's like, for instance, the background showing the Thames. We were just in a studio with nothing. It was actually landlocked. The room was just literally just a room, but they have this projection that. So some people are going to look at that and think it's oh yeah, by the Thames, which they're not. They're actually moved to White City temporarily while they're having repairs done. So what people see is not necessarily the truth. And yeah, but also the other thing that I thought was really quite fantastic, I was asking for 20 minutes, which is impossible on ITV on live. And they said, you'll get 8 minutes. And I was really disappointed. Then I was told that 8 minutes is a huge amount for live TV. So I thought, oh, okay, no, that's good. We ended up going just over 10. And Holly was desperate for it to continue because she was enjoying it so much.
That's ace. That really is ace. I mean, obviously I was, gritting my teeth the whole time I'm watching it because of comments like that. So you think the whole of science is debunked then. It's like, well, you don't have any science, Philip. Clearly you don't understand what science is, but you're just generally globehead like anybody else. Yes, you're a famous daytime TV presenter, but it doesn't change the fact that he's under the assumption that this is scientifically valid, that the globe has been scientifically proven. It's like day in, day out, all we say is there is no scientific evidence for the globe, none whatsoever. And if people claim it, we have great fun taking them apart based on their assumption that they've got science. But like everybody, Philip Schofield assumes that, well, science is debunked. What do you mean science is debunked? Do you mean the institutions that get together, scratch each other's back and say that they agree when they come up with a formal logical fallacy to prove that we're on a sphere? That's not science. That's the consensus of men. It's called peer review. It's even got a title. It definitely isn't science. And the areas that are asserting we're on a sphere aren't even scientifically valid areas of education. They are pseudosciences. They can't exercise the scientific method. The people who promote this model, including Brian Cox, he can't apply the scientific method to his observation only. That's all he can do, observe phenomena. What's he going to do to actually vary and manipulate an independent variable to establish a cause of the phenomena that he's looking up in the stars? Well, the answer to that is he can't. So it's a pseudoscience. So none of it's scientifically valid. It's an absolutely outrageous assertion by someone like Philip Schofield to presume that his model, should be a big, massive clue there. He don't live on a bloody model, but his model is scientifically valid, and that makes the world his model. It's like, no, Philip, no. Clearly not that up on this actual argument, are you? You've just taken the mainstream bullshit. Or read your script, more likely than not.
Yeah, a bit of both. I think he's basically like a figurehead, not in the figurehead like he's actually got any a lot of like knowledge. Obviously he's been indoctrinated. A lot of us have been in the past, and some of us are awake, some of us are not. But it's the fact that he's been given because the one thing that came out of all this, and I'm trying to unpick everything about how we were treated. The makeup, how everything from the beginning when we got there to the last minute, and we were literally on site the whole time for about an hour, but it took 8.5 hours to get up there, to park, find out where we got to go, and then come back and then get home and whatever. And I picked up Martin Kearney because he had to take this model, which they end up not using. So, and like for instance, like so Darren was saying, "Oh, can I bring on my laptop?" And they said, "No, we can't have that because." Basically, what it is, it's obvious that they need to vet it because he could put anything up, couldn't he? Really, he could be talking about the Queen or talking about something happened in another country that is catastrophic. So they have to control the narrative. And one of the things that happened is that they were vetting us on the phone leading up to it. I mean, they phoned me up on let's get this right. We did the convention, finished it on the Sunday. Drove home on the Monday. I get a phone call on the Tuesday saying, "Can you come up?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. When are you looking at? Friday?" We were trying to get Dee Dee over as well because she's only just gone home. And I also tried to get allegedly Dave, and they didn't seem to be too interested, but I don't know why, because he would have been great. And then they said, "Oh, we'd like you up as soon as possible." I said, "What do you mean by as soon as possible?" And they said, "Well, tomorrow." So I'm literally dissecting everything. Now, even though I may be overseeing it or overviewing it, overthinking it, I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anything. The only thing I wish I'd have done is recorded it while I was there, just in case it had been doctored. Because as you probably know, they've actually put out I think it's 7 minutes 17 seconds. But what they've done, they've cut out some points, but they've also cut out the bit where I actually called out Brian Cox, and I would love to have a few actors in there like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye. So that's cut out, but I don't know if it's necessarily cut out because they don't like it in there, or if it's because they've got to try and do like a bite-sized chunk. And 7 minutes 17 or whatever it is a fair amount of footage. But one of the things I think is quite significant, though, Nathan, is the fact that, including the 2 million that apparently watch every day, if you add it onto the 3.7 million that have watched it since, it's 5.7 million. If you look at most of their videos that are put out online, I have looked back as a bit of an anorak. Most of them are literally 200, say 2,000 or 10,000 views. If it gets to 50,000 views, that's actually pretty good. Only the odd video goes over 1 million, and this has got 3.7 million online, plus obviously the 2 that watched it live at the time. And I think that's really, really good for Flat Earth.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, as much as I can be critical of the situation in terms of how it went down, it's the same as any other mainstream representation of Flat Earth. You're putting across your point of view from a personal perspective on mainstream TV. So the subject's being discussed. It's making it more aware to the public that the subject is being discussed, regardless of what side of the fence they fall on, most likely the Globe side at the end of the discussion. But then they've been made aware of it being a thing. And you can't really ask much more from a media that is going to be against our side of this position, because they are under the delusion, like Philip Schofield, that this is scientifically valid. And it isn't. But while they are under that impression, we'll just get their scorn. So to have, like you say, 10 minutes dedicated to it, regardless of if 3 minutes was actually snipped out on the video upload to YouTube, it's still 7 minutes of Flat Earth being put in the face of quite a number of people that may not have been aware of it beforehand.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, one thing I do is when I send the video onto people, because obviously it's easy just to go onto This Morning and just put in Flat Earth and it just comes up. But I also send them that clip where I actually am calling out Brian Cox, because it's significant, because it's very rare. I mean, I don't believe it's ever happened where he's been called out on live TV. I mean, just to be called out and it's pre-recorded and whatever, I don't know if he's been called out that much, but nobody's ever been in touch since. I mean, the only time they got in touch since is they actually asked me if I could go back on there to talk about the moon hoax, which I'd love to have done, but I was actually working at the time. So Martin Kenny went up there. I don't know if you're aware about this, but I think it's that was about 3 months later, I think, sometime in the summer. So, it's also like Holly. I don't know if you saw the bit where she was actually talking about Tim Peake, and I said, well, that's all just done in the studio. It's just a joke. And she said, but I've seen the book. And it was the highlight of my career. So a lot of people, they are totally asleep. And obviously that's in my opinion, because obviously who's to say that we're right? We can't be 100% certain, but all the evidence that we've come across. And it's funny, actually, I was on the plane going over to Denver for the convention, and there were 2 girls next to me, not together. They just happened to be, individuals. And at the very beginning, I mean, they must have been in their early 20s, and and they just saying, "Oh, why are you going to America?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to a convention in Denver." They said, "Why is that?" And I wasn't going to add it because I just wasn't in the mood to say, not because I was embarrassed, because I'm not, but it just no point. And they said, "Oh, why?" And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll tell you. Maybe you'll chin at the floor, but I'm going to a Flat Earth convention." And they both looked at me with this really wry smile, as if to say, "Bless." The thing is, they're in their early 20s. I'm 55. And I've gone 52 years of my life actually believing what I've been told, or just not questioning it, but just believing, just accepting it. And then all of a sudden I saw a video from Mark Sargent and thought, hold on a minute, there's a bit more to this. So for the last 3 years and 2 months, I've actually been thinking, hold on a minute, I'm now looking at it from a different angle, seeing a hell of a lot more now than there used to be that I was aware of, even though I was like a little bit into conspiracies and 9/11 and JFK and Diana and whatever. All of a sudden you think, whoa, there's a whole new world out there that we need to look at. And I didn't initially think I'm angry because we've been lied to. I was actually thinking, wow, my whole paradigm has just been turned upside down. And I've tried to say to them that I've gone 52 years of my life, and now I'm looking at it from 2 angles, whereas you've literally had 22 years or 23 years or whatever they are, and they've accepted what they've been given. But it doesn't mean that what they've been given is the fact. Whereas with me, I'm not saying I have all the truths, but I'm looking at it from 2 different viewpoints, and I've got a lot of years of knowledge to try and work through. And I just think a lot of people are just very naive.
Do you really think you can't disprove the stuff that NASA pump out?
No, I don't mean that. What I'm trying to say is there's always, like, for instance, what I personally say is that we do not live on a globe, and everything points towards it's flat. But could it be something else? Possibly. Have we been to space? I would say no, because what we've been shown and all the evidence suggests it's a load of rubbish. What I'm saying, and this is what I actually I use, is that if there is such a thing as space, they haven't shown it. They literally haven't shown it. And see, I have a couple of queries, Nathan, that I've been sharing with a few people, like Patricia, I mentioned it the other day, and a few other people, is that the one thing that I struggle with, and I try, like I said to you, I try to pick and analyze and critique everything that happened, like on the interview up in ITV, is I also do that with what's put out there to the flat Earth and the community. Is that if you look at the Van Allen belts as an example, is that we are shown footage of NASA. We're shown the rockets going up. We're shown the research. We're shown the pool systems that NASA used to train in and whatever, and the ISS and everything that we're looking at it and thinking, no, don't believe that. That's like rubbish. And we're looking at it and there's glitches with it. But when we come to the Van Allen belt, we are very accepting of that. Saying, oh yeah, the Van Allen belt, yeah. So how can you go through low Earth orbit? I mean, they're talking about like the Orion program, or on the ISS, the astronauts are saying, alleged astronauts are saying, oh, we're trying to get out of low Earth orbit, and Obama's saying it. But are we being fed a lie? Because with the Van Allen belts, it's a convenient fix for us. See, how can you get through the Van Allen belts? But we've been told that by science. Exactly. And that is what I struggle with. I'm not saying it doesn't mean it's real or is real, but I'm querying everything. And it's the only way I want to be.
Well, may I give you a better argument?
Sure. Yeah, I'm always happy to learn.
Okay. Well, the housekeeping question that directly relates to this subject is, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And the reason for that question and its phraseology is simple. The space that you're detailing, the place that they claim the ISS is, or the missions to Mars are taking place through, or the Van Allen belts that they claim exist, is a vacuum. Well, the thing about a vacuum is that if you have a greater pressure than that vacuum, it will disperse into it if there is no barrier between it and the vacuum. And we have, for certain, you highlight that we haven't been to space. You haven't been, I haven't been. You been, Ranty, just out of interest? No, I haven't.
Sorry, been where?
Space.
Have I been to space?
Yeah.
No.
No, so all three of us, we can all say that none of us have been to this place they claim exists. But we've all definitely experienced the gas pressure that we have on Earth. We all know and love it, we breathe it. It's definitely there. And in order for that to exist, the pressure that is, it needs to press on something. You measure it with PSI, per square inch that it presses on. Yeah? Well, if you're to assert that there's a vacuum beyond the gas pressure, and you can just travel from the gas pressure to the vacuum, then ultimately speaking, you have a second law of thermodynamics violation. Entropy. The gas that's trying to press on something is instead encountering a lower pressure system. And when that happens, the gas disperses instantaneously into the vacuum. You can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum. And by asking that question, how can you have gas pressure without a container, you ultimately debunk the very medium they claim this stuff takes place in. We all know that it's on a stage, and it's on high wire, and it's filmed, and it's just like Hollywood. But if you just use that argument, people can choose to believe that space is real. So, for example, you have people like Alex Jones who punt the alternative moon landing narrative. Well, yeah, they had to fake the moon landings because they were trying to beat the Russians and they did it all secretly. We just don't get to see that bit. Well, what a load of old bollocks. That would also require that they travelled from gas pressure through a medium that's a vacuum in their narrative. And that narrative has a place that you, me, and everybody else who are experiencing the gas pressure that's very real cannot go to. So we have to believe that it is possible for us to maintain gas pressure in an infinite vacuum of space, thus debunking the very medium they claim all this shit takes place in, because you can't have gas pressure without a container. The container is the necessary antecedent for gas pressure. In other words, it needs something to press upon in order to have pressure. So when you ask them, well, what's the gas pressure we're all breathing on, pressing on, and they go, well, we've got a gas pressure gradient. Oh, right, so it's very low pressure at the top then. What's that low pressure pressing on? Oh, well, it just turns into a vacuum. Well, that makes no sense. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. We have something called entropy, hot flows to cold, all that sort of stuff. Well, if you claim that there's a vacuum of space where all this stuff and rockets and satellites are, then that violates the second law of thermodynamics. And unless someone can actually demonstrate that it's even possible to maintain a gas pressure without a container, in other words, have a balloon that you've blown up, it gets bigger because it's got greater pressure in it, and you remove the balloon and still have that cylinder or circle, of a sphere of gas pressure without the balloon, just static in the air without anything containing it. And of course, when I detail it like that, people go, well, you can't do that. That's not possible. Well, the differential between a balloon and atmospheric pressure is very slight, but you still can't maintain that gas pressure. Well, now imagine the differential between, what have we got, 14.5 psi versus 10 to the minus 17 torr. That's a pretty big difference. I absolutely guarantee that the laws of entropy would hold and we would lose our gas pressure instantaneously were it to be a vacuum of space as they claim. We can't have a vacuum of space, and that's what the narrative dictates. It's a big, big, big hole in their narrative. But space, the vacuum, outer space, is fake. It cannot possibly exist.
Well, see, the way I look at that, Nathan, I totally agree with everything you're saying, and I totally 100% concur. The thing that I try to look at everything with a critical eye is that they are not showing us, and whatever they've said is never based on actual. Like, for instance, you're saying that there's no way can a vacuum space be next door to something with an atmospheric pressure. Totally agree. But it could be, and I'm not saying I support it. I'm just having to at least put it into my brain to actually think it through. But is there a mechanism where things out there do exist? And I actually do believe that we're a realm, and I do believe that we're the center of the universe or a realm. I do, because the way the stars all lined up and everything else. And I did an experiment on around about that I can come on to in a sec if you wish to know what that was. But is it a question of that? It's almost like you go into the supermarket, you go down the biscuit aisle, and that's all you ever see, the biscuit aisle. But what you don't realise is that if you go down to the bottom, there's also the alcohol aisle, but they never show you it. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to, when I come across any videos on the internet, I'm trying to look at everything with a fine tooth comb as much as I can. And I'm trying to find those golden nuggets, because what we've been sold is a load of rubbish. And you and I both agree that. So yes, I agree. There's no way can a rocket take off, go through the atmosphere, go into the outer space. There's obviously question marks about the rockets working against a vacuum. You know, there's a big, massive question mark about that.
Why? What
but
vacuum?
Is it that there's something?
Why?
I've
got to stop here. That's where the flat earthers fall on their face. Why? Why would you say it's a big problem for rockets to work in a vacuum when you can't have a vacuum of space?
It's a question mark. Yeah, it's a question mark, as in a lot of people question it. But I know I've seen a video recently by, I think it was Rob Durham, where he showed in a vacuum. Well, the vacuum can only be is one, you can't get 100% vacuum on Earth, and secondly, it's only a small little container. So if you have something going off, it could act against the wall. You don't know if you're getting a false reading. So I would say there's a question mark about which way it is, and I don't know either way. I don't support or against it because I don't know enough. But anyway, you carry on. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're trying to figure out whether or not rockets work in a vacuum, you're working on the pretense that space is a vacuum, and that you need to figure out whether or not rockets will work in that medium. Well, it's far simpler to debunk the medium. You know, working out whether or not rockets work in space is the same begging the question fallacy that applies if you use something like the curve calculator to work out how much you should or shouldn't see. You're working on the pretense that the Earth's a sphere when you look at a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, and you're working on the pretense that outer space is real when you test the premise that rockets should or shouldn't work in a vacuum. So you're doing that because you're under the pretense that space is a vacuum, and it can't possibly be.
And I agree. And it's no different to what I'm saying to you about the Van Allen belt. We're actually taking that because we've been told that. And you're right about the vacuum of space. It is very, what you're saying is 100% spot on. I agree. It's just what I'm saying is I do not know enough, and we maybe don't know enough to actually be able to. I mean, I'm not saying we can't comment, but there's so basically the bottom line is how many things are out there that we just haven't, we've been led down the garden path, and the indoctrination and the whole manipulation is horrific. And it's from pharma to 5G to space to the monetary system, the education, the health system. It's a sham. The whole thing, we've been set up, bottom line. So yeah, I think you've got some really valid points, and I do agree.
Yeah, and I agree with you about the Van Allen belt. I mean, that's a narrative that's been given to us, so we can continue to argue under the pretense that you have an outer space. And the narrative of the Van Allen belts, where's that come from? Well, it's come from NASA, hasn't it? I think it was von Braun himself that came up with the Van Allen belts. Is that correct?
No, I don't think it was him. It was actually Van Allen himself, wasn't it?
Oh, of course it was. It's Van Allen. Stupid me. Indeed. Yes.
Yeah. You come up with the Hoover vacuum cleaner. Oh, I think it was Mr.
Dyson.
Electrolux.
It was Dyson, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes we all say things, sometimes, don't we? And you think, what? Hold on a minute, where did you get that from? But yeah, it's see, the thing is, like, when I said to you a couple of minutes ago about the fact that you've got the guy, I can't think of his name, but he was talking about the Orion program. They're trying to do shielding to get through the radiation, and you've got the ISS people where they're saying we would like to get out of low Earth orbit. Is that just a red herring for us to jump on that? Think, right, see, that's proof. But meanwhile, we're missing the point because there's something else really happening. Because somebody said, I think they said it at the Denver convention. I think I heard it through another means before, and then they said it actually because they had like an open like mic session, not an open mic, but they were just asking questions of the panel, and I think the likes of Jaron and Leslie Dave and a few other people were on there, and he said, and I actually think he's got a bloody good point, and I've often wondered this, is that he's making a particular widget, say a tungsten or whatever, and it says that the engineering for it is immense, and the cost to make it whatever. So basically, I think there is something happening, and I'm going to put my neck on the line now, and I'm going to say what I think that could be, is that where they talk about aliens, which 3.5 years ago, I actually believed in aliens, and also believed there was no God, and there was, I was an atheist. Since then, I've actually now believed that that we are in a created society, in a world. What and who by whom, I don't know, but a lot of people like to jump onto the bandwagon of it's God. Yeah, possibly, but I don't know. But I do believe that we are created because of things that you come across. It just opens up your eyes. But it's just the manipulation that we've actually been put under. That we have been sold. We've been sold a story, and the thing is, are they hiding? And what I think is that if there are lands outside of Antarctica, which if I had to put my money anywhere, it would be that there's lands or there's locations that are not being open to the public, to the general like sheep. That is there such a thing as there are beings there that we're having to? Because I think the only way that NASA is ever going to get away with this at a later day is that they have been defending us, whoever we are, which is the known world. So I don't know. Basically, the bottom line is, what is all this equipment being made for? Because let's face it, satellites are a joke, but people think they're working on satellites. They're obviously clearly working on something, and it isn't to do with, some people say it's to do with money. And I don't believe that for 1 second, because they can produce as much as they want. So money isn't the issue. It's control, and it's hiding stuff. And the question is, and I would love to know your thoughts on it, is there's something going on. They wouldn't have all these organizations doing what they're doing just to have this smoke screen that we're going into space. I honestly think there's something major going on, and I think a lot of it is centered around Antarctica as well.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Everything that you've just said, I mean, I've spoken about it many a time, is that I believe there's extra land beyond Antarctica. I also believe that there is a narrative that they could spin, which is that those people or beings or inhabitants of the land that we don't yet know could be a threat to us. Maybe we're seen as the threat, and maybe we're being kept in, or maybe we're being kept in by our, elite. The elites are keeping us in to stop us from straying into their territories, for all we know. So like you say, it could be that could be their get out clause, that what they're saying is they don't want us to go down there because it's dangerous for us. For all we know, they may be more advanced than us. I also had a theory about, the UFOs that we see, because we do see UFOs, but they could be just from those those lands, their crafts, that could be their crafts from their lands that are more advanced. We have, what's the best we have? Is it the B-52 or whatever, or the whatever F-35? That's the best sort of craft that we know that we have. They could have far superior technology than us, and they could be flying over and checking us out all the time, seeing how we're getting on. So like you say, I mean, I do believe that there is extra land, absolutely, 100%. And I think that if we had the technology to go and explore as individuals, we could find that land. It's whether we were permitted to leave by our betters, the people that run this known world that we have, or whether we will be allowed in by the people that maybe own the territories beyond what we know. It might not just be as simple as, oh, there's extra land, let's go and get it, because it's probably inhabited by something.
God, you guys have got short memory.
I also wanted to add on to that, Ranty, is that also, like this thing about the Van Allen belts and what we've been told and the vacuum of space and whatever, we've also been told about the treaty and Antarctica. So obviously we've taken that as read, and I must admit, there does seem to be a question mark. And I just wanted, if you don't mind me having a couple of minutes here, I happened to be at a party a couple of years ago, and somebody who I didn't have a clue who he was at the party, and he was talking about Antarctica. My ears pricked up, and 2 minutes later, I thought, oh, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. I want to go and find him. He didn't then say another thing about it, which I thought was quite good, because that meant that he wasn't just there on an ego trip. Oh, I've been in Antarctica and I've done this and I've done that. And I quite like that, because it gives credibility to the fact that he's probably got some integrity. If he has or not, I don't know, but it just seemed that way. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I went up to him about 20 minutes later. And I said, "Oh, I heard you talk about Antarctica. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" And I was trying to do it in a very with curiosity, without him realizing that I was actually taking him down a path, because obviously I was very keen to learn. But basically what he said is it took 2.5 years to get the permit. It cost £80,000 for it to be submitted. And I said, well, how did that get raised? And he said, well, basically they're joined to a group of people that are looking at exploration, and they're looking at trying. So basically there's like this body of people that have got like funds, and Prince Harry was involved, and he was going to be the doctor to support Prince Harry. And I went, oh wow. And obviously I was really on record mode. And they went there. They had to land on a particular strip where they use Icelandic people, because apparently they're the best in the world for that particular environment. And that cost $60,000 apparently for that to be set up. So obviously that's shared between all the people going. So it's money to stop people going there, I guess, or it just costs so much. I don't know. But why should it cost $80,000, and why should it take 2.5 years to get the permit? With Prince Harry, you'd have thought that would have opened up some doors. So anyway, they got there. They then obviously navigated to the agreed point, which was this American base. They got there, and Prince Harry was like desperate for a cup of coffee, and he was really like cold and needed some like R&R. And they were very dismissive. They almost like it was like just another Joe Blogg average. And apparently he put in a complaint to Buckingham Palace, and they complained, and the Americans have apologized, which is by the by. But then when they actually went out there to go and research, they were told they could only go over, I think it was a 400-meter strip, and they were told to go down this particular line and do not go left or right any further than 200 meters, because basically it's dangerous. But what he also said, and this is the bit that really stood out, but I just racked my brains to know a bit more about what he was saying, is there was some type of contraption that was on the ice, boring into the ice. And he said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It looked really bizarre, very, like huge engineering project. And unfortunately, the opportunity, I don't not remember anything else about the actual chat, but all I will say is that, I was just thinking, wow, there's something there. But if there is or not, I don't know. But they're doing something major there. And I do think that the key is Antarctica.
Well, like Van Allen, they've given you a narrative about Antarctica, made it seem really, really significant and important. They've even given you a map to tell you as a flat earther where Antarctica is and what it is. I mean, I had a massive blazing row with Anthony about this very subject.
Yeah, I do agree what you're saying. And I have to try and factor that in. I'm thinking, okay, have I been manipulated on that story? Not that story, that guy, because obviously he just told me I've got no reason to disbelieve him. But when you weigh everything up, and even, yes, we have to be careful what we've been given, I just think that, I have to say that I lean, like I said a couple of minutes ago, I lean towards the other lands, but those other lands may not necessarily be, because there's also a question mark about the what they call the Southern Hemisphere. Is it within the known area? But like, for instance, Bermuda Triangle is used conveniently for when the rockets take off and Cape Canaveral, and they don't want anyone around because they don't want people to see it. So it just seems to be a big smokescreen, and it's trying to weigh up what it is, but the whole thing is just a sham.
I mean, I don't want to piss on your bonfire too much, Gary, but you and Ranty both seem to have the aversions to want a real understanding. You want beliefs in this stuff. I mean, Antarctica, aliens, land, well, all of which are possibilities. So are flying, farting unicorns. But so what? It doesn't mean they're true. And why would you want to invest in any belief in any of this stuff?
No, it's more to do with the feeling of it. And even though that's not based on, you can't give it too much weight. And it could just be that. And the reason why I do it, I suppose, is that if you're looking for something, it's not that you necessarily want to find it, but you may then come across something else. So it could be like it's a stepping stone. So I don't know, and all I'm saying to you is that if I had to put money on it, and if you were, say, for instance, put on the spot, right, what do you believe in, or what don't you believe in? Today, I would say I do not believe in the globe. We're not spinning. We're not moving through space. Whatever space is, whatever that is, if there is such a thing, what we've been told is a total lie. And when it comes to where we are, then I would have to say, if I had to lean on a particular method, I would say that there are other lands. This doesn't mean there are other lands, but all I would say is that the elite, the so-called elite, are hiding something, and it could just be control and manipulation, and it starts and ends there. I don't know, but I would love to find out.
But that's the bit that I like and just want to hear that bit. I don't know.
And that's it. I don't know. I really don't know. The only thing we do know is that we're being controlled. That's the only thing I can guarantee about all of what I've just said.
Absolutely 100% agree. The whole point of this is control, not money. They can print as much as they bloody like. It's fiat.
Money, anyone who actually gets hidden, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand about the 52 million a day for NASA and whatever, but you know what? It's a smokescreen. It's rubbish. It just literally, it takes you down the wrong path, because money isn't the issue here. Because what happens is that you produce the money that actually allows for slavery and to allow for the control. And at the end of the day, the ultimate thing at the top of the pyramid is the control. Within that, you then get slavery, you get money, you get manipulation and whatever. And at the end of the day, the whole thing is just there for us to be workhorses. And that this thing I've been looking into lately about the dangers of meat. And it's not maybe the meat as it sounds, as it is, but the way it's been manipulated and controlled. Like, for instance, seedless grapes. I don't know if I can swear, but how the fuck do you get seedless grapes? And they call them organic. What are the rubbish? So there's so much there just literally to keep us, like the farmer, you're given vaccines to make sure you are ill over the lifetime. So you do end up keep buying, you're forever a customer. It's a scam. It's really bad. And they do not give a damn about us. We're literally no different to the animals on the farm. And we're just literally there to do their bidding.
Yeah, exactly. Or to put it more succinctly, it's all about control.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, have you got stuff to plug, Gary? Might as well plug stuff as you're here.
Well, all I will say is that we're literally about probably a month away from. We're finalising details with this particular convention hall in Amsterdam. We're sorting out accommodation, so we can actually have like a campsite type environment. We're working hard on a program that we're quite excited about if we can get what we want, but we can't release it yet because it's still in its infancy. But we're looking at doing some significant things on that. The only other thing I can say is that it's a totally different convention to what's going to happen in the UK, where that's going to be more centred on the Global Lite tour culminating in near the Birmingham area. and there's going to be some speakers there, and also going to do some, some workshops on activism and whatever. So that's in its early stages, and it's probably not best for me to plug it because I'm not an expert and I'm not organising it. But Dee Dee and I are actually behind the scenes in support of what's happening in the UK, and it's coming under the umbrella of the FE convention, which we quite like because it means in that we can help promote each other. Outside of that, really, that's about it.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Well, watch the space in terms of, presumably it's Roxanne that would be promoting that.
I think it's what it is. It's Jason and Roxanne are doing the Globe Live tour, and Robin and I think her name's Charlotte are actually organising the actual the convention because there's both of them are such big animals. To do an 8-week tour is quite a lot of work. You couldn't be doing that and also trying to organise the convention, but the two then come together on that last Friday. And they're going to do like what they did in Southall recently. They're going to do that, but then there's going to be a convention over the weekend around it. And then 2 weeks later, if all goes well, 2 weeks later we'll be having our convention in Amsterdam. But we're working in unison. So it's quite a big thing to have two in Europe in 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe you're biting off a bit more than you can chew, Gary.
Not really, no, not at all. I mean, it's all in our stride, and Dee Dee's doing a hell of a lot of work on this, and she's so switched on now. I mean, she's really come on leaps and bounds. But we are concentrating on Amsterdam, and they are concentrating on the UK. So no, it's just literally put on another event, but it's exciting because one thing that Dee Dee and I are very keen on is to be progressive. We don't want to just go and repeat what's happened in the past. We want to be thinking, okay, what can we do that makes it a little bit more different? And even though sometimes there are going to be similarities and crossovers, overlaps, but we're always looking to see if we can put on an event and try and make it cost effective for people, because at the end of the day, we care about doing something with integrity. And you know what? If the elite, the so-called elite, can do the same thing, they could learn a lesson.
Yeah, they're not for that. But yeah, I agree. Cool.
So just getting back to the whole point of why I got in touch with you is that if we do get what we want with the physicist, we would love you to be involved because we think you add a lot of value. And it's not until Adam mentioned it last night on this group, we had like a brainstorming hangout, and I thought, yeah, actually, you're right. Nathan would be brilliant at this, and Dee Dee concurred immediately, and here we are.
Cool. Yeah, I'm well up for it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd be on my best behaviour. I wouldn't be calling him a globetard or anything.
Well, the other thing, Nathan, I've got to know you over the time, and you've always been supportive. You've always been helpful. You've had us on your show, and and we met in Leamington Spa and in Cardiff, and you came to the convention on the Friday. And I just think you do a great job. And I don't know if you necessarily get the not that you're looking for praise, but I don't think you necessarily get the kudos that maybe you deserve, because you do a lot of hard work, and you are a very deep thinker, and you do really put across an amazing argument. So I'd like to say well done to you.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much. I mean, I had the same from Robbie Davidson, who's asked me to go over next year to the American one, and I've agreed for the same reasons. He said, well, he's actually asked me for both events, and on both times I've said, look, no, I don't feel I've got a great deal to offer. I couldn't put together a presentation to do for you, so what's the point of me going other than to go as a spectator? And from that perspective, it's just too expensive. Whereas this year, it's like, well, actually, I do feel like I'll have something to offer. I can offer value to you or to Robbie. When it comes to these conferences, I do have information that can disseminate to an audience now because of 12 months solid of debating. And without that, other than being a video logger and interviewing people like Patricia does, that's really what I can talk about. And it's not really my information when I was just interviewing people. Whereas now, yeah, I've forced myself to become quite an accomplished debater. And, I'm quite proud to say that. And it does mean that I actually have something to offer to a conference or to an audience that's not watching for the debate itself, to actually hear how things have progressed, what we debate about, where our winning subjects are, where our winning arguments are, and where their reasoning and excuses for belief in a globe are fallacious. So that is something I can definitely offer. If it actually comes to debating a physicist, then absolutely wonderful. That's brilliant, on account of the fact that many, if not most, of the science that we are taught isn't actually science. So that's something that's easy to pick apart if you have a reasonably good understanding of what science actually is. And most people don't. It's abused on both sides of the argument, flat Earth and globe Earth. And I hope in time we will stop being as guilty as they for hijacking this terminology. Science is very useful for proving things, proving the cause of a naturally observed phenomena. You know, it's there to explain the natural world, and that's useful. And if you can hijack that and say that a peer-reviewed piece of paper that several men who are accredited have agreed upon, and that's your world, that's science, then that's a very powerful statement, even though it's not true. And many of the scientific communities aren't actually scientific. You know, they may not realise that. And we had Zinda on the other day saying, look, I don't really want to tell my girlfriend. He said she's a geologist. That she's essentially a pseudoscientist. You know, after the show, John Quantum Eraser got in touch and he's like, "Let Zinda know, I'll tell her."
Well, I think it'll probably get back to her now. Now that you've outed him.
Well, no, it's not that he outed himself. He was, quite open. I mean, Zinda's one of those people that I wouldn't, I don't want to wish any ill on him whatsoever. And if he is of the opinion that he doesn't need to tell his girlfriend that she's actually a practitioner of pseudoscience, then I don't blame you, mate. You know, that's his bag. I wouldn't want to do the typical Glober thing. You know, a Glober's attitude, given that information, would be, right, let's find out who she is and ruin her life. You know, that's not me as a flat earther. I'm, more power to you. Same with all the globe heads. More power to you. In our you trust, go in peace, all that kind of stuff. Whereas they're of a very different opinion. They want to smear us and dox us and chase us around in Ford Fiestas with Globe on on the number plates.
Funnily enough, Soundly, he apparently got doxed as well.
What's his name then?
There's a doxing video about. I've not seen it, so I don't know, but it's what I've heard.
I just want to know his name. I hate referring to these people as Soundly or Slice Marcane. And what's your name? What's your real name? Let's communicate like adults, not like kids at school with nicknames. Ranty.
Maybe somebody saw the video. Yeah, who'd want to call themselves Ranty, for crying out loud?
I know, what a joke, eh?
I know.
Yeah, we do actually know your name, though. And, admittedly, that's your YouTube channel. And, off air, we do call you by your real name. Some people choose to roll that way. But ultimately, if you're concealing your name, and people have to go to the extent of actually doxing you, it's like, well, to be honest, I don't really care, because the only reason to have a fake name is so that you can have the power of anonymity on your side. And you can get away with a lot more if you don't have an actual name attached to you. There's no legal recourse either.
Ute knows what his name was. Can you see it?
Is he in the chat, is he? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Egbert.
Yeah.
Is he just... No, he's probably just making that up. I think he's just making that up.
Just like to add, Nathan, that I think it's really great that Robbie is, wants you out there, because even if you only end up doing one or whatever, it doesn't matter. The very fact that he would like you out there for the two, obviously, it means that you're being recognised. Not you're doing it to be recognised, but it's great because the bottom line is you add value, and you do it in a different way to most other people, and that's like with us in FE Core, we do, Dee and I do conventions. We don't really do a lot of the scientific side. Dee's a little bit more into it than me, but I do different things. Like I went to Balaton and did the experiment with FE Core. I've done something about the Orion belt, and I looked at that. So that's not my main thing. So to do the conventions is like what I would like to think is maybe our strength. But yours is like the what you do with the debate, and then you have like certain people doing presenting and like Eru Lenducci type thing. So I think it's good that we end up having a real strong mix of people that do different things, and it just makes us stronger, and it helps, because what will happen is that you will be there, you'll engage with somebody, you will inspire somebody to go and do something that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been there. And there's a legacy that comes from it, and it's not to do, oh, well done, Nathan. It's how we all grow. And one thing I would say to you about Denver, and it was no different to Birmingham, but Denver is on a larger scale, is it's not the presentation so much that happens. And when people say, oh, I just sit online, I don't need to be there, they're missing the point. The connections that are built and the symmetry, the synergy is just amazing. And I can't enthuse about it enough. And I think if you go to any of these events and you're there for the weekend or the time that's on, you're just going to have a blast and you're going to love it.
Yeah, agreed. It's about pressing the flesh more than anything else. But on the other hand, if I am at these events and I'm broadcasting on YouTube, there's a certain expectation that you're going to do something. And in the past, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Interview people in the corridor and put it out on YouTube? Well, as you've probably seen from previous conventions, including your own, that's precisely what a lot of people do. That's that's their bit. And it's like, well, I don't really want to do that. That's done to death. Not that I'm knocking anybody who does that. certain people like
I agree.
Flat Earth.
I hear your point.
Yeah, you got people like Flat Earth Fokker that ended up catching. I've already forgotten his name. The guy that was doing the suicide forests. What's his name?
Suicide what? Sorry.
The suicide forest guy.
Oh, Josh Logan.
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
Sorry.
There you go. Logan Paul.
Yeah, Logan Paul. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Logan Paul.
But for the fact that he was video logging the conference, he wouldn't have catch that interview. Just by chance, he was live at the time. Therefore, once the camera's stuck in the guy's face, what's he going to do? He's out live. Doesn't matter how many people, because other people have picked up on it. So that is a very useful tool, but it's not the tool that I would want to be there, using. But actually being there, disseminating some of the information that I've picked up through the debate that would strengthen people's arguments. That is something I can definitely add to the conferences, which is why I've agreed this year to actually do them, where I've turned them down in the last couple of years. I mean, in terms of your conference, I didn't really do anything. I opened the conference, but 2 or 3 sentences, and it was straight into Anthony's actual presentation with information. And I'm not the kind of person that talks just because I like to hear the sound of my own voice. If there's something to be said, I like to say it, but not just for the sake of opening my mouth and having my voice heard. So in terms of your conference, I didn't say a great deal because I didn't have a great deal to say. There wasn't a great deal on offer. The debates were fairly new at the time. We were into maybe 70, 80 number at the time. I can't remember exactly. But it wasn't like it had been going for a year. And, we were well genned up with all of the arguments to debunk pretty much anything a globehead can throw at us. Now we are. It's like, well, that means that I've got certain argumentation that can be disseminated to other people that they can use. The housekeeping questions, that's probably all I'll bang on about. It's like these have very, very carefully phrased. They're very carefully phrased for a reason, and it's because if you understand the argument that's behind the question, then you essentially debunk a very critical part of whatever it is we're talking about. Distance to the sun, gas pressure without a container, curvature. It's easy to say any signs of curvature, but if you intrinsically understand that the reason behind that question is because we don't ever see anything curving. There is an assertion that obstruction at the horizon, something that Ranty's looking into in great detail at the moment, is hijacked and called boats going over the curve of the Earth. Well, that makes you think about curve, right? Well, what curve? We never see any curve. There is no curve. What curve? There's just a mathematical hijacking of perspective. And it's asserted that that's curve when you remove yourself. But that is an intrinsic understanding of the phraseology behind any signs of curvature. Seems like a simple question, but there's a lot more meaning to it. And hopefully I can pass that on to a few other people. Same with the other housekeeping questions. One, you've had the the full wrath of me going through it in terms of gas pressure without a container. If you can understand intrinsically that anything that has gas pressure requires pressing on something, then you can undo anybody's assertion about anything in space ever, because you just ask them that question. Oh, right, so you're claiming this satellite has taken a picture of Earth from space. How am I breathing? How can we have gas pressure without a container?
You go in, Dave.
My bad.
This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do on the convention. You need to put a 45-minute segment together, going over the housekeeping stuff, and literally say it like you're doing now, but obviously with some nice something nice on the projector screen behind you that you've actually put together. But essentially, you could do a 45-minute presentation, and you could have it on the 5 or 6 housekeeping questions.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where we're getting progression. I mean, Anthony's doing his dissertation currently, and the largest chunk of what he's talking about is based around those questions. It's not phrased in the same way because he's not asking the question to the person he's going to be marked by. He's putting it across in terms of partisan politics and its relation to the law. But ultimately speaking, it is the teaching of information that is not sound. In fact, quite the opposite. Fallacious reasoning that's asserted as being scientifically valid. It's an absolute outrage. But yeah, that that is wrapped around the housekeeping questions and their phrasing. So, you know, I think that if people understand those questions and the arguments behind them, then there's very few arguments with a globe head that you'd lose.
On that, Nathan, Dean and I loved having you and Anthony at the convention on the Friday. We'd loved you to have been there for the whole weekend, but we obviously knew that wasn't practical. Two, yes, I think that you doing something, because what will happen is you'll also be talking to somebody like, for instance, in the break, you'll be talking to David Weiss about something, and all of a sudden you brainstorm about an idea and you'll go off and work on a project that you wouldn't have come across if you hadn't have been there. So there are going to be benefits not only for the people listening to you, but you're going to get benefit from it, and you know that. But the thing for me, the biggest thing of all, is it's all very well being on ITV and it's all very well doing convention, it's all very well doing research, but there has to be a tipping point. There has to be that moment where all of a sudden it's not just, because you could literally, we could wake up 100,000 people today that are globe today and they're flat earthers tomorrow. So what? Great, we've probably doubled our numbers, or we've halved it again, or whatever it is. So what? The thing is, at what point do we then get a voice where authorities, whoever they are now listening, and they've got to do something about it? So for me, the tipping point is the key, because it's no point us having, like today, we've got, say, for instance, we got, say, 100,000 flat earthers and truthers, and then in 2 years' time, let's say it's 3 million. So what? 3 million compared to 7 billion is not a lot. Okay, we may have a voice, but will make some people think, hey, ornament, there's loads of them. They're all over the place now. So what? We still need to have that point where all of a sudden we are talking to the people that are so-called in control, who are thinking, shit, okay, you've got us. So I don't know about you, but I think it's like, what's basically, I suppose it's like, we have to have not we have to have an end game, but it's like, where is it going to go? And that's one of the things that I do know.
The place it's going to go is if you've got 3 million flat earthers. It depends on how well educated on the flat earth they are. It's all right, somebody like Logan Paul saying he's a flat earther, who clearly doesn't know the first thing about flat earth, but yet somebody like Nathan, who is a flat earther, he can argue with anybody. So if we have 3 million people in Nathan's sort of in the way he's been trained, then there's 3 million people that can argue for the flat earth and do a really good job about it. And that's what's going to wake people up. I'd rather have 3 million people that are awake, but literally like Nathan, rather than 3 million wake or woken people like Logan Paul. There's a big difference.
Well, I think in terms of what space to watch for that tipping point, Anthony Riley's going to be the person to keep your eyes on. I mean, I can't divulge too much.
I think it sounds groundbreaking.
We can't divulge too much about this because some of it is in the process of happening, but yeah, definitely Anthony's going to have some pretty exciting news probably in the next month, maybe a bit longer, or maybe in the new year. We'll see. But either way, in the not too distant future, Anthony's going to reveal some information that is potentially that exact tipping point that you described.
You're not allowed to say anything, though, Nate.
No, I know I'm not allowed to say anything, but I'm not just hinting that there's big news on the horizon. There's always big news on the horizon, right?
Well, either way, it's going to be it's going to be embarrassing for people in government in some way, isn't it? It's going to give some people some bloody noses, I think.
Absolutely,
as a minimum.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we can't say any more than that. So let's change the subject before we reveal something we shouldn't.
But I'm sorry, obviously coming on and on hijacking whatever you were discussing. But it's been great to be on here and to take part. So thank you for that. But my only goal was to actually talk to you about what we're trying to do in Amsterdam, and that was it. So to be on here now was not something I was expecting. So thank you.
No, it's absolutely pleasure. Are you heading off?
I'm not offended that you didn't ask me.
I whispered it and you ignored me.
It's all right, I'm only pulling your leg.
I know.
Okay, we'll leave you, Gary. We'll let you get on. Thank you very much for joining.
Thanks very much, and be great to obviously touch base with you very soon. Reference when we got concrete plans, and then we can map out what how to facilitate it, really, to make it happen.
Cool. I look forward to it.
Actually, can I just say this? You're going to be one of the very few people that, in theory, could be involved. Because if you do go to like the convention in Birmingham as well, you could be one of the few people that are actually going to be to all 4 conventions. So yeah, that's quite unique.
I hadn't thought about it that way. Interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. It's just that I'm going to Dallas in November. I'm not aiming to go to Canada because obviously we've got a lot happening in September. But if you do go to both, and you do, and I'm not saying you're going to go to Birmingham, but if you could, in theory, go to all 4, that's actually, it's only on an individual front, isn't it? I mean, it's not going to make any difference to anyone else, but you just know yourself that you think, shit, you've been to all 4, because there's going to be 4 major, I would like to class them as major conventions or conferences or whatever next year, and you, in theory, you could be at or more, really. Because it's in Kidderminster, so it's not that far from you, is it?
My wife's originally from Kidderminster. I know it well.
Yeah. So but no, it'd be great to work with you more, Nathan. I like to connect with people within Flat Earth they're doing a good job, but they're doing it for the right reasons, and that is really important because we do find some people do a good job, not necessarily for the right reasons, and obviously after a while you get to know certain people. Like for instance, Patricia Steer, I know she's had a rough time with different people, and I absolutely say in private and publicly, I 100% support Patricia, and she's doing a great job. I just think it's unfair and a shame of sometimes that she picks up the shit from others, and it's not right. So when I come across people that I rate, I give them my when I call it unconditional backing, it's unconditional based on the fact that if they continue with their integrity, then I'm always going to be there. If they then turn, then obviously I can't then give them unconditional backing because they've turned. But there's certain people in Flat Earth that are they're just wonderful people, and they are just their heart's in the right place, their head's in the right place, and they're just lovely to work with and to connect with. And I would have to include you in there because like I said earlier, you do a good job. And even though I know that you rub some people up the wrong way, so what? That sometimes ruffling some feathers is a good thing, and I support what you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Yay me!
Go Nathan! But it's all good, and if we just keep building, building and like we are, then it's only going to get better.
Cool. Right. Well, I think I'll probably round out the show on that note, unless there's anything either of you want to actually add. Right at the end.
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations again, Nathan.
Oh, thank you very much, Ranty.
Congratulations on what, Nathan?
My wife's pregnant.
That was an intro for you to actually say that.
Yeah. Congratulations to me for being fertile. Right, well, a massive, huge thank you to Gary and to Ranty for joining me. Thank you very much, both of you.
No worries.
Nice chat with you both. And I'll speak to you soon.
And also a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in. I'm not going to put my camera on because I'm still in my dressing gown, so I'll say another thank you to Ranty and to Gary, and another thank you to all the audience. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!